Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Sasori's Disciple. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 8, Trial by Fire. Sakura. Yes, Sasuke-kun? Shut up. Sakura looked at the ground dejectedly. Even after months of being in the same team, Sasuke wasn't interested in talking to her. Worse, now that she was no longer in the academy, she had no one to discuss her crush with. Actually, scratch that, she had no friends period. Pining after Sasuke-kun was a lot less fun now, what with him reminding her every day that her feelings are unwanted and without the pressure of competition from the rest of the girls in class. So here she was, alone with Sasuke-kun, something that should by all rights be a dream come true, wishing for Naruto and Kakashi to show up already so they could get this mission over with. How did it come to this? She glanced up towards their client, a drunkard bridge builder that they were supposed to be escorting to the land of the waves. The old drunk was mumbling something to himself, and Sakura had a feeling it was something rude towards her and the rest of her team. What was his problem anyway? Yeah, they were still fresh from the academy, but it wasn't like this mission was dangerous or anything. Who would want to attack a bum like him? A bridge builder, for Kami's sake. Hey, Sakura-chan. Sakura snapped out of her thoughts and looked at Naruto beside her. Once again the blonde managed to arrive without her ever noticing his presence before he announced it. She greeted him politely, but otherwise said nothing. She still didn't know what to think of Naruto after his big reveal. She didn't really take the whole QB thing against the blonde, but well, she wasn't stupid. She knew that despite Naruto's cheery disposition towards her, he had little respect for her, or for Kakashi and Sasuke, for that matter. So why did the blonde tell them all these highly personal details? What kind of secrets was the blonde guarding that he had to go so far to provide a plausible smokescreen? Sakura was tempted to try to get it out of him in private, but she heard from reliable sources that Naruto could even outmaneuver Ino when it comes to verbal exchanges, and Sakura could never match Ino in that area without dragging the discussion down to the level of insults and name-calling. More worryingly, Naruto seemed to get pretty vicious when feeling threatened. She had a small but non-trivial fear that if she stuck her nose where it doesn't belong she would have one of those unfortunate accidents or disappear without a trace. She frowned. Something in particular was bothering her about Naruto today, but she couldn't quite point her finger on it. Suddenly it dawned on her. Naruto, you idiot, she chided. You forgot to bring any supplies. We'll be out in the wilderness for at least a week. Hurry up and get your backpack before Kakashi shows up. He shook his head and pointed at his belt, which contained a dozen or so neatly tucked in scrolls. Storage scrolls, he said. Oh, well, she felt rather stupid now. And he even told them he can make those, too. I can make one for you when we get back. No, you don't. I'm not hitting on you, he said with a sigh. I know you're not. You know, just forget it. The point is, I don't need a storage scroll, alright? Your loss, Sakura sighed. Every time she tries to act nicer to the blonde it comes out wrong. She glanced towards Sasuke, but the Uchiha just pretended his two teammates don't exist. It actually made Sakura a bit angry. Would it kill him to at least stand closer to them so they could act as a real team from once? Back when Naruto told them about the Kyuubi and his secret skills, Sasuke was actually somewhat talkative, and it almost seemed like the whole things had brought them further together. But it soon became obvious that Sasuke still saw his team as a nuisance. Only now he saw Naruto as a threat, rather than a dead weight dragging him down. The latter designation was now exclusively reserved to Sakura. Sakura huffed and kicked a nearby rock down the path. And she was so happy when she heard who she was placed with, too. It sucked. Totally sucked. Yo! Said Kakashi, appearing on the scene right next to Naruto, who instinctively jumped into battle stance at this disturbance. Sakura rolled her eyes in annoyance. Their sensei seemed to love surprising Naruto lately, for some reason pleased that he can sneak up on a rookie genin. Really, some people have too much time on their hands. Finally, Tazuna said. I want to be home as soon as possible. I don't see what you're so upset about, said Naruto. Sensei's actually on time for once, and we're right on schedule. I'm annoyed that I have a bunch of kids as bodyguards, grumbled Tazuna. And that one of them is a scrawny runt like you. Are you sure you're a ninja? Do you expect to be attacked? Asked Naruto with a frown. Color drained from Tazuna's face. And no, of course not. Then there will be no problems, yawned Naruto, waving his hand dismissively. Alright, we can continue talking while we walk, said Kakashi. Move out everyone. With a sigh and a glance back at the village, Sakura trudged off after her team. Since this was the first time she was out of the village, the feeling of elation soon washed away her foul mood, and she soaked up the sounds and sights of the forest surrounding them. Despite the emotionally significant experience, Sakura did her best to act with dignity. Naruto had no such compunctions. He was jumping around from one side of the path to another, checking up on anything remotely interesting and even taking brief foray into the surrounding wilderness after he got permission from Kakashi to scout the area. He only calmed down 2 hours later, whereupon he took it upon himself to annoy Sasuke in various ways during the journey. Normally Sakura would have reacted to this behavior by now, but today she had other business to take care of, and besides, she was feeling a bit vindictive about Sasuke giving her the cold shoulder earlier, so she decided he could deal with Naruto himself for today. Once she was sure both Sasuke and Naruto were well in the front and out of earshot, she dropped her speed to match with Kakashi at the back. "Something wrong, Sakura?" Kakashi asked. "Kakashi-sensei," began Sakura, "am I useless?" Kakashi raised an eyebrow over his one visible eye. "Why would you think that? Sasuke is an Uchiha and Naruto has massive chakra reserves thanks to the Kyuubi," said Sakura. "How can I be useful to people like that? I'm supposed to be their teammate, but I'm just going to be a burden to them, aren't I?" "Ah," said Kakashi. "You're looking at this the wrong way. All ninja have some kind of inborn advantage. True, some of them are more potent than others, but all of them require work to be useful. Sensitive hearing can be just an interesting personal quirk, or a powerful advantage that allows you to shrug off the genjutsu your pink-haired teammate is repeatedly trying to put on you. It all depends on how hard you work on it." Sakura's eyes bulged. That's how he does it. That's why none of my genjutsu work on him." "I know," said Kakashi, smiling. "It's so simple it took me a while to figure it out. All this time I thought I was just hopeless with genjutsu," said Sakura crankily. "That asshole. He could have told me instead of letting me feel like shit." "I'm going to." "You realize he can hear every word we say?" asked Kakashi with amusement. Sakura stared at him wild-eyed before looking at Naruto. The blonde was walking as if nothing was wrong. Technically he shouldn't be able to make out what they were saying at this distance, but if he really has that good hearing... "Wait," said Sakura. "If he can understand us from there, that means that every time I was saying something out of his earshot he heard everything," finished Kakashi. "Everything?" Sakura said in a panicky voice. She used to say pretty embarrassing things under her breath back in the classroom. If he heard all that stuff then, Naruto chose that moment to turn his head enough to give Sakura a toothy grin and silently mouth everything. Sakura shut her eyes in defeat, fighting off embarrassment, and the urge to go over to Naruto and pummel him into submission. Since the blonde kept it a secret all this time, he clearly already had some consideration for her privacy, and abusing or threatening him might just set him off. Naruto seemed to enjoy annoying people, and if he knew how much this bothered her he might spread the rumors around just for the reaction of all the people to know her innermost thoughts. "Anyway, back to our discussion," said Kakashi. "Even bloodline limits like the Sharingan and Byakugan derive most of their power from specialized techniques and taijutsu styles that accentuate the clan's unique abilities, not from the raw abilities granted by the bloodline. And you will notice that Naruto and Sasuke have worked hard to be as good as they are right now. It's not just inborn advantage. After all, Sasuke still doesn't have the Sharingan, yet he's the Rookie of the Year, and training to be a Seal Master and a Medic Nin at the same time is hard work, regardless of chakra reserves. If you want to keep up with them, all you need to do is work as hard as they do." "But work hard on what?" protested Sakura. Said Kakashi, rubbing his chin. "Tell you what, when we get back to Konoha we'll find something that suits you. You'll be catching up to them in no time." Sakura sighed. She doubted that, but it doesn't hurt to give it a try. It would be nice not to feel like a third wheel for once. "Man, this is so boring," complained Naruto. "Hey old geezer, aren't you the one who said you want to be back home as soon as possible? Can't you pick up the pace a little?" Now, chided Kakashi, not talking his eyes of his perverted literature. "Patience is a crucial skill for a ninja, Naruto." "We're in no hurry, Naruto," said Sakura sweetly. "If you have so much pent-up energy, maybe you could carry my backpack for a while." "What do you say?" "Nah," said Naruto with a smile. "You need the exercise if you really intend to catch up to me and Sasuke." After a second of nothing happening, Naruto glanced at Sakura from the corner of his eye. She seemed somewhat annoyed at him but otherwise calm. Strange. Usually she would have hit him by now, or at least sent a few choice curses his way. Overall, he had to pronounce his confession maneuver hadn't produced the results he was hoping for. He was expecting Sasuke and Sakura to either sympathize with his position or hate his guts even more. Either reaction would have suited his purposes. This sort of lukewarm response just messed up everything. Ah well, at least it got Kakashi off his back. Though it was very worrying that the man seemed to have devised a way around his hearing. If Kakashi decided to spy on him later on, how will Naruto detect it now? He had to find out how he does it. Was it some sort of special genjutsu? I told you not to worry about genjutsu, rumbled Kyuubi crankily in the back of his mind. There is no genjutsu that I cannot break you out of with ease. That man is just being careful not to make any noise. Listen carefully and he will not catch you unaware in the future. Naruto merely grunted in response. It wasn't that he was doubting Kyuubi's capabilities, as much as its intentions. If the fox ever decided it was in its best interest not to help Naruto, it wouldn't. It was unwise to rely on its power. This whole partnership was merely one of convenience. Unbidden, the voice of Sasori came to him and told him that all alliances in the ninja world are like that. Even in the sanctity of his own mind, he could not escape Sasori's cynical views. Just as he was contemplating the merits of starting a fight with Sasuke just to pass the time, something caught his attention. Wait up, he said loudly, suddenly stopping. Combination of the gesture and the fact that he was at the front caused everyone to stop and stare at him. What do you two think you're doing? Sasuke and Sakura looked at each other curiously. Sasuke shrugged. Naruto, what do you? Began Sakura. Not you two, the people in front of us. Yes, you two. I don't have to see you to know you're there. You've got so much metal on you I could hear the clinking from a mile away. Nearby puddle of water melted away, revealing two strangely dressed men. Naruto quickly scanned them. Their attire and the slashed hitayatesh identified them as former Mist Ninja. They were armed to the teeth and didn't look all that friendly. Great. He just knew there was something rotten about this mission. After all, why would a simple bridge builder hire ninja bodyguards for a routine journey back home? And of course, the man was curiously stressed out. Naruto suspected that had Tazuna not got so sloshed, his body language would have betrayed his deception with crystal clarity. My, said Kakashi to the Mist Ninja, his eyes still on his precious literature. Bested by a rookie genin. You must feel pretty foolish now. Gozu, what should we do? One of the Mist Ninja spoke to the other in a hushed voice. The other ninja glanced over Naruto and his group, giving Tazuna a particularly hard stare before shaking his head. We can't win here, Gozu said, and they fled. Just like that. Was it really alright to let them flee? Naruto said. I'm pretty sure they just tried to ambush us. Who's to say they won't try to do it again? Kakashi pocketed his book and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I don't think it's wise to pursue them through the forest. Someone has to stay to guard Tazuna, and there could be more than two of them. Really, it's a pity you exposed them like that, Naruto protested. Yes, Kakashi repeated. I wanted to see how you handle an ambush situation. Wait a minute here, Sakura piped in. Are you saying you knew they were there but didn't say anything? What if they had killed us? Sasuke snorted and rolled her eyes. You've got nothing to worry about with me around, said Kakashi. Besides, the point is moot. Naruto already shot that plan out of the water. I do wonder though, what exactly were they after? What do you mean? Asked Sakura. Well, I don't mean to brag but I have a pretty high bounty on my head, said Kakashi. But they seem a bit of a small fry to target me. It's possible that they were after a different target. Kakashi shot a long glance towards Tazuna. Don't be ridiculous. Tazuna protested. What would ninja want to do with me? I'm just a bridge builder. If you say so, said Kakashi calmly. Well, I suppose we have no choice but to keep going and hope there won't be more to come. Stick close and pay attention to your surroundings, kids. The atmosphere became a lot heavier from that point on. Kakashi-sensei, began Naruto. He's lying, said Kakashi. I know. What exactly would you have me do? Accusing your client based on a personal hunch is bad manners. Now if you had allowed those two ninja to attack and reveal their target, that would have been something. Well, fuck you too, hissed Naruto. If you wanted them to attack so badly, why didn't you give me some sort of sign? That's no way to speak to your jounin-sensei, Naruto, Kakashi sighed. But anyway, it doesn't matter much. Even if you found out that the mission is more dangerous than you thought, would you really back down? Would Sasuke? Naruto frowned. Probably not. We'll find out who's after Tazuna soon enough, said Kakashi. Naruto looked around again. From the moment they stepped on the coast of the Land of the Waves, the fog has been thickening, obscuring everything more than few meters in front of them. The fog isn't normal, said Naruto. It dampens the sounds. Kakashi nodded. It is to be expected. Those two were too weak to survive as missing Nin on their own. Now that they know they'll have to go through me to reach their target, they'll get serious. Go to your teammates, and tell them to be on high alert. Naruto took only 2 steps when he heard footsteps. He spun in an instant, and launched a kunai behind him, causing everyone to shift into battle positions. However, rushing towards the spot, all he found was a skewered rabbit. False alarm, said Naruto, displaying the animal carcass. What the hell, Naruto? You just killed that poor rabbit. Sakura yelled. Whatever. At least now we have some dinner later, Naruto said dismissively. Get down! Shouted Kakashi, pulling down Tazuna, Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto was too far away for that, but even through the sound-dampening mist, he could hear the sound of something big flying through the air, so he was already dropping when Kakashi spoke. Which was good, because whomever threw that seemed to be targeting Naruto in particular. If his reaction was a fraction of a second slower, he would have been hit. Scrambling to his feet, he could see a giant blade embedded into a nearby tree, and a very strange man with a slashed mist Hittite standing atop it. You've got good ears to hear me coming through this mist, boy, I'll give you that, the man said in a raspy voice distorted by the bandages covering the lower half of his face. But you're way out of your league here. Why don't you get back while adults do the talking? Momochi Zabuza, demon of the bloody mist, said Kakashi, lifting his Hittite to reveal his Sharingan. So you know me? Said Zabuza with amusement. I'm honored, Thousand Kakashi. What do you want? Said Kakashi. Nothing much, just the head of the bridge builder you're escorting, Zabuza said calmly. Hand him over and you and your genin can go home alive and in one piece. Kakashi frowned. I'm afraid the answer is no. Everyone, form protective formation around the client. Hidden mist technique. If the mist was bad before, this technique Zabuza did made it 10 times worse. Naruto could hardly see things right in front of him, and even his hearing was crippled. The only sound that wasn't impeded was Zabuza's voice, echoing all around them, enumerating the various spots that were lethal if hit. He actually missed a few, but considering they were hard to hit in battle, Naruto wasn't surprised a non-medic like Zabuza knew nothing about them. In any case, the echoing nature of the voice made it impossible for Naruto to pinpoint Zabuza's location. Naruto exhaled in a low hiss. It was bad. He really couldn't stand up to this Zabuza in any way. He couldn't see or hear the man coming, couldn't block the attacks from that giant sword of his, and he couldn't move away from Tazuna to use the terrain to his advantage and set up some traps. When he heard the soft sound of someone landing beside his team and Tazuna, he knew he was dead. Instead, Zabuza's swing was stopped by a Kakashi's kunai sticking out of his chest. Naruto stared wide-eyed at the scene. One moment nothing was happening, and the other this. That was unlike anything he ever witnessed. Truly Zabuza was right at the start. Naruto was way out of his league, but then a doubt invaded his mind. Something was wrong. The kunai went through Zabuza's torso far too easily. In fact, the wound was oozing water. Zabuza's form shuddered and collapsed into liquid. The battle raged around them, and from brief glimpses Naruto could witness, it was clear that both opponents were making a judicious use of clones. Finally, Naruto snapped out of the daze induced by the combined killed intent of 2 elite ninja and the sheer disorienting nature of his situation. That was Kakashi's battle. Naruto had his own. Sasuke, Sakura, we've got 2 opponents coming here fast. I think it's those 2 from earlier. Alright, said Sakura, holding her kunai in front of her like a good luck charm. I can't see anything. Hissed Sasuke. Don't worry, those 2 are not anywhere near as silent as Zabuza. Just pay attention to me, and you'll do fine, said Naruto. Naruto grinned. Zabuza may be one hell of an opponent, but these 2 coming after them were so loud that Naruto could hear them even through this damnable mist. As long as Kakashi takes care of Zabuza, they should be alright. Hey Haku! Shouted Zabuza from somewhere. The orange one is getting troublesome. Make sure he doesn't interfere anymore. Naruto swallowed heavily. Another one? He had a bad feeling about this. Suppressing the yell of pain, Naruto ripped out the needles out of his left shoulder and quickly repaired the damage. His fingers twitched, fine coordination finally coming back to the arm connected to his wounded shoulder. If it weren't for his medic knee knowledge, he would have already been neutralized by now. At the very least, he would have seriously injured himself by removing the needles inappropriately. But Naruto didn't fool himself. This Haku that Zabuza ordered to keep Naruto busy had succeeded in his goal. Naruto was indeed busy, and quite far away from his teammates. He could only hope that Sasuke could handle those 2 attackers on his own, because Naruto had his hands full right now. Haku was fast, even faster than Sasuke, frighteningly accurate, and could pull needles out of thin air. Literally. He seemed to freeze the moisture of the mist into chakra-enhanced ice to use as weapons. During their lessons, Sasori had told Naruto that this bloodline limit was destroyed during the mist bloodline purges. But apparently there were survivors. He jumped away, narrowly avoiding a barrage of needles on his position. Not only was Haku dangerous in combat, but he was quite good at tracking down Naruto every time he managed to slip away. He saw through Naruto's traps as easily as Naruto saw through Konohamaru's handiwork, and he never, ever, overextended himself. A true professional. Haku was trying to maneuver him near water. Oh, the ice boy tried to be subtle about it, but Naruto was pretty well versed in reading the flow of the battle. Whatever he was planning, Naruto would not be playing along. Fighting a mist ninja on in his own element would be extraordinarily foolish. Once again Naruto threw one of his special kunai at Haku, but the ice mirror that sprung out of nowhere between the two of them deflected it. The ice mirrors Haku made seemed to be unbreakable, and explosions could not overpower them. Naruto hissed in frustration. He was running out of options. His teammates needed him. You should stop worrying about your comrades and pay attention to your own fight, said Haku softly before flashing through a series of one-handed seals. It was bad. No, it was worse than bad, it was a disaster. Not paying enough attention, Naruto had ignored the thickening mist around him, and was now paying the price for his sloppiness. The fog around Naruto condensed into hundreds of needles, all ready to strike. With no other solution he could think of, Naruto grasped for the storage scroll holding Naga and unsealed it. The snake-like puppet wrapped itself protectively around Naruto just in time to protect Naruto from the ice needles. Haku may have been a professional, but the sight of Naga made him pause in surprise. It was all that Naruto needed. In a sudden movement, Naga's stinger-tipped tail lashed out against the ice boy with blinding speed, punching through the half-formed mirror as if it was nothing and causing Haku to sloppily try to sidestep the attack. The stinger slashed through Haku's chest, not quite making the killing blow but definitely putting the boy out of the fight. But Naruto wanted to be sure, so he instructed Naga to open its mouth and let loose a breath of fire at the still dazed Haku. Somehow the boy managed to erect a protective cocoon of ice around himself, neutralizing the assault. Naruto debated for a second whether to press on the attack, but now that he thought about it for a bit, the thought of killing someone made Naruto feel a little uneasy. And besides, it looked like erecting that cocoon took pretty much everything out of Haku. He looked ready to drop any moment now. He needed to get back to Sasuke and Sakura. He quickly sealed Naga back into the scroll and ran back towards the spot he left his teammates, the mist finally starting to thin out. Apparently Haku was indeed hurt pretty bad, because Naruto heard no sounds of pursuit behind him. In the last few minutes, Sasuke realized he hated Naruto. He hated the fact that Naruto could detect enemies that he could not, and that their enemy considered the blonde a bigger threat than Sasuke. He hated how the blonde remained so easygoing and cheerful, despite his own personal tragedies. But most of all, he hated the fact that Naruto remade himself from a total failure to a credible competitor with Sasuke in just little over a year, as if mocking Sasuke for sinking so many hours each day into getting better and achieving so little in return. Naruto was fighting a battle against an elite enemy, and would no doubt come out victorious. And Sasuke? Sasuke was having trouble dealing with these two pawns, fighting for his very life. It was true that in normal conditions he could have mopped up these two clowns without breaking a sweat, but the mist tipped the odds into their favor. Sasuke simply wasn't used to fighting in conditions of reduced visibility. Relying on his trained responses, Sasuke ducked, letting the chain pass harmlessly over his head. He jumped back to avoid the kunai thrown at him and frantically tried to formulate a strategy in his head. If only he could pin down that damnable chain somehow. His vision started blurring again, and he focused on banishing the groggy feeling. He really shouldn't have soaked that one hit, but it looked to him as if the claw will only inflict superficial damage. How was he supposed to know it was poisoned? At least he managed to keep the two chain crazies away from those two dead weights, Sakura and Tazuna. It soothed his ego that even though he was doing so good he at least hadn't failed the mission yet. He snorted angrily. Was he really going to wait for Naruto to save him? If he can't even handle these two, what will he do when? Run away, little brother. Things clicked inside Sasuke's mind. Of course. He flipped through a series of hand seals and sheathed himself in a minor genjutsu, before crouching down. If he did everything right, his opponents should perceive him to be still standing, as long as he stays still. The chain suddenly wrapped itself around the image of Sasuke that stood calmly and defiantly in the face of its demise. As the chain tried tearing it up and simply passed through it, Sasuke sprung up from his position and pinned the chain down to the ground with 2 kunai. Before the surprise might wear down, he flipped through another series of hand seals and breathed a fireball on one end of the chain, disappearing into the mist. A satisfying scream of agony told him he hit his target. 1 down, he spoke softly to himself. It seems those silly little genjutsu his sensei was teaching him had some uses, after all. Still, if these 2 weren't such easily fooled idiots, this would never have worked. Certainly he would never fall for such an obvious ploy. Gouzu! The other ninja screamed, before rushing madly at Sasuke. Sasuke scoffed. To lose his composure so easily over a fallen comrade, truly, allies only made you weaker. Just like how Sasuke had grown too dependent on Naruto's detection abilities and was now paying the price. If only he could awaken his Sharingan. Sasuke lazily deflected the man's reckless strikes. Without his partner, the ninja was useless. His mind was clearly focused on wrapping the battle up as quickly as possible so he could check his partner. Sasuke flashed a kunai in front of him, slitting the man's throat. The ninja grasped at the wound, hacked a bit, and then collapsed on the ground. Sasuke breathed hard. He was tired, both from the battle and the poison slowly spreading over his body. He stared at the body in front of him, motionless and bleeding on the grass, and thought about the scream of the other mist ninja as the fireball hit him. He had just killed 2 people. That was supposed to be big deal, wasn't it? His first kill and all that. So why didn't he feel anything? Was it the fatigue and the adrenaline, or was he just a monster? I'm an Avenger, he mumbled between breaths. That's right. An Avenger. Emotions like regret were just a burden to someone like him. There was only his task, his ambition to kill his brother. These 2 were an obstacle on his quest, and it makes no sense to feel bad about their death. And he didn't. He didn't. Sasuke sank to his knees, struggling to remain awake. He was tired. So tired. Suddenly he realized that the mist is clearing. Was it over? Did Kakashi beat this Zabuza guy? No. Kakashi was trapped in a sphere of water. Well, crap. Kakashi was the last person that Sasuke expected to be a problem. After everything Naruto said about Kakashi, Sasuke was expecting something more impressive. Was this Zabuza guy really so great, or was Kakashi's reputation simply overblown? Game's over, brats, said Zabuza. Hand over. Wait a minute, what are you doing here, brat? Where is Haku? Don't tell me you. Sasuke looked over to the side, only to see Naruto, a little banged up, but otherwise alright. Actually, he looked better than Sasuke himself did. Sasuke chuckled mirthlessly. He was getting complacent. Next time, he'll be ready. Naruto won't make a fool out of him again. Stupid dope. Sasuke croaked softly, aware that the blonde couldn't possibly hear him. I hope your medic training taught you how to handle poisons. Naruto threw a kunai at Zabuza. A silly little kunai, as if something like that would mean anything to someone of Zabuza's threat level. And sure enough, Zabuza casually used his giant sword as a shield, and then the kunai exploded. The sword was big enough to absorb the brunt of the blast, but the force of the explosion threw Zabuza back. Though Zabuza was still very much alive, and now very much angry in addition, Sasuke knew that the explosion achieved its purpose. Zabuza's presence no longer maintaining it, the water prison trapping Kakashi collapsed. An ice mirror materialized on the shore, and the same masked hunter Nin that separated Naruto from the team stepped through. Well, more like stumbled through. The ninja was sporting a heavily bleeding wound on the chest that made Sasuke glad he only got mildly poisoned by comparison. She seemed to have dropped her mask somewhere along the way, probably so she could breathe more easily. Zabuza-sama, wheezed Haku, staggering towards the bandaged man. I'm sorry, it's inexcusable, but he surprised me. Brat, growled Zabuza at Naruto, his eyes ablaze with fury. I'm going to skin you alive. I don't think so, said Kakashi angrily, water dripping off of him. You're not going to pull that trick on me that way again. Zabuza-sama, we must, began Haku, before running out of breath. Zabuza looked at Haku, looked at Kakashi, looked at Naruto, and then at Haku again. Finally, he seemed to have reached a decision. This isn't over, he said. Far from over. With those words, Zabuza rushed to Haku's side, picked her up and disappeared into the forest. Sasuke frowned. Why did Kakashi allow those 2 to escape like that? Wouldn't it be better to? Kakashi stepped onto the shore and collapsed face first on the ground. Shit! Yelled Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke exhaled heavily. He was so tired and the wound on his arm burned something fierce. Well, he supposed it only makes sense to follow Sensei's example. Closing his eyes, Sasuke collapsed on the ground as well. Shut up, Tazuna. Shut the fuck up, Naruto-san, please, tried Tazuna. Oh, it's Naruto-san now, is it? What happened to Runt, huh? Look, what do you want me to say? I'm sorry, okay? I didn't have the money for a B-rank mission and I was desperate. This bridge represents the hope of the entire island and I can't get it finished soon. Whatever! Screamed Naruto. You could have just said that to the Hokage and asked for a delayed payment. He'd go along with it. Do you realize in what position you've just put me? My Jounin-sensei and the only other effective teammate are both out of commission for at least 3 days. What do you think is going to happen if we're attacked right now? Well, began Tazuna. We'll all get massacred, that's what! Yelled Naruto. You stupid idiot! What the hell am I supposed to do now? I'm a freaking rookie, fresh out of the village. My first mission was supposed to be a cakewalk, just something to give me a taste of things, not like this. What the hell am I supposed to do here? Slaughter everything, rumbled Kyuubi helpfully in the back of his head. Salt the ground afterwards. Naruto ignored it. Damn Fox rarely had anything useful to say. Fortunately, it rarely spoke to him at all. Naruto-san. Naruto turned to Tazuna's daughter. Tsunami, if he remembers correctly. I apologize for the troubles we've caused you. I know you're upset about your friends. If it means anything to you, I am eternally grateful to you for bringing my father back alive. Naruto sighed. He was too emotional right now. Being angry at Tazuna won't accomplish anything now, and his daughter at least didn't do anything wrong. You're all going to die, you know? A little boy said, before shutting up when a kunai impacted the wall right next to his face. Brat, growled Naruto. If you tell me that crap one more time, I'll fucking skin you alive, you hear me? Naruto-san. Protested Tsunami, pushing her son behind her. I'm sorry, Tsunami-san, said Naruto. I'm just under a lot of stress right now. Can you tell me where Sakura is? Upstairs, with your friends, answered Tsunami. Of course. God forbid she actually makes herself useful for a change and helps him deal with the situation. No, she'll rather sit beside Sasuke and stare at his unconscious body as if that is going to anything to make the Uchiha wake up sooner. Yeah. Thanks. Listen, Tazuna, you'll have to stay here for the next couple of days. What? Protested Tazuna. But I have a bridge to build. When Kakashi wakes up, said Naruto before turning and walking off towards the stairs. No discussion. As long as Tazuna stays close to Sasuke and Kakashi, Sakura can guard everyone, leaving Naruto free to roam around the island to gather information of the situation they had found themselves in. He didn't feel confident without knowing more about enemies' distribution of forces and how many ninja he has on his disposal. As soon as he came into the room, Sakura was immediately upon him, demanding that he check up on Sasuke. He did check him out, both him and Kakashi. He did a pretty fine job or stabilizing them both in his opinion. They're fine, he said. They'll be on their feet in about 3 days. Just care for them till then, eh? But you're the medic, Nin. I'm going to scout around for a bit. No! I don't think you should. I'm doing it anyway. When Kakashi wakes up, he can punish me if he thinks I was out of line. I can't relax until I know what we're dealing with here. Since this is something I can do and you can't, you care for Sasuke and Kakashi and guard Tazuna's household. Place some traps around the perimeter. That's at least within your scope of ability. Sakura flinched at his implication that she was generally useless, but Naruto wasn't inclined to care at this point. Besides, continued Naruto, you wouldn't leave Sasuke's side until he's better one way or another. He turned to leave. I really was completely useless in that fight, wasn't I? Sakura asked quietly. Naruto sighed. This whole situation had left him angry, and now he was lashing out at people. Never a good course of action. He turned around and motioned to Sakura to sit down, before proceeding to do so himself. Listen, don't beat yourself over it. You'd have to be absurdly powerful to have made a difference in that fight, said Naruto. Everyone is alive, so things aren't that bad. Now, I need to assess the situation to make sure Gato won't send anyone else to attack us while we're recovering, and you need to protect Sasuke and Kakashi while I'm gone. You're a very meticulous ninja and have a lot more patience than me, so it falls to you to set up a defensive perimeter around Tazuna's house. Okay? Why yes, said Sakura, relaxing somewhat. Good, said Naruto, getting up. I'll be back soon. It took less than a day for Naruto to understand what compelled Tazuna to try to cheat a ninja village out of their money. Land of the Waves really was a crappy place, and Gato didn't even try to hide his involvement as the prime cause of Island's misfortune. While Naruto still thought that there were better ways of handling the situation than lying to Konoha, he supposed a bridge builder from a small island couldn't have known about them. In any case, gathering information was tricky. Spies were everywhere, making people jumpy and paranoid. The local economy had essentially collapsed, with people demanding food and hard merchandise instead of money whenever Naruto tried bribing them for information. On top of that, Gato's thugs patrolled the streets, ostensibly as law enforcement, but generally causing pain and disorder instead of warding against it. It took all of Naruto's self-control not to go on a killing spree when he witnessed their belligerence the second time in one day. But as tempting as it was to bash some heads, Naruto knew it was a bad idea. That would cause a major commotion and no doubt attract Zabuza and any other ninja Gato had under his employ. He had to find out exactly what he's dealing with before he rushes in. He doubted his information gathering could be kept secret for long, so he had be done by tonight. With so many spies walking around, by tomorrow morning the news would surely reach Gato one way or another, so he decided to be more bold. He found a group of thugs, dropped his transformation, and beat the crap out of them. Then he hid and observed them from shadows. Sure enough, they ran into one of the houses, probably one of the hidden bases. He walked up to the house, bashed the door in, and knocked everyone inside unconscious with nerve strikes until he found a couple of thugs that looked moderately important. After tying them down, he woke up the important-looking ones so he could question them. What the hell do you? Began one of the thugs. Who are you? My identity is not important, said Naruto tapping on his hitai. Now let's get on to business. Tell me everything you know about Gato, the thugs under his payroll, ninja he's got, secret bases, everything. The tied-up men leered at him. You think we'd tell you something like that? Asked the first thug again, scoffing. Naruto took a paper tag out of his pocket and stuck it on the man's forehead. Yes, I do think that, Naruto said, flashing through hand seals. The man screamed as the tag glowed and then he suddenly became silent, his eyes unfocused. The rest of the thugs looked at the scene, silent and mortified. Tell me everything, said Naruto. Compelled by the mind control seal, the man told him everything. Well, Naruto, said Kakashi, I heard you've had a little adventure without us. Wouldn't it have been better if you, I don't know, waited for your sensei to wake up, HM? Sasuke glared at Naruto as if the blonde murdered his dog or something. Kakashi didn't have to wonder what was eating him. The fact that Naruto got out of the battle unscathed and then gathered information of Gato's forces all by himself while Sasuke got poisoned and spent 3 days bedridden was a heavy blow to his ego. Sakura just seemed subdued, concerned about Sasuke's foul mood but unable to do anything about it. I apologize, Kakashi-sensei, said Naruto. I didn't intend to go that far originally. I got carried away, Kakashi sighed. Well, at least now we know Zabuza and Haku are the only ninja in Gato's employ. Assuming Naruto's information is correct and Haku won't be up for 3 more days, we should use this reprieve to get some exercise. What kind of exercise? Asked Sakura timidly. Intense kind, said Kakashi. Tazune can work in peace for now, but make no mistake, we'll have to fight those two once again before this mission is over. Now, Naruto, said the other ninja, Haku is a fast opponent, faster than Sasuke that uses ice techniques. Ice techniques? Asked Sakura. That's wrong. I've never heard. If he's faster than me, interjected Sasuke, anger in his voice, how did Naruto defeat him? I surprised him, said Naruto. I have a few tricks in my sleeves. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. You mean you held back against me? Not exactly. These tricks aren't something suitable for spars, said Naruto. Then let's fight now, hissed Sasuke. You and me, right now, no holding back. No, said Kakashi quickly. Why? Sasuke asked angrily. Because you still haven't completely recovered and you aren't in sound emotional state. Calm down, Sasuke snorted and folded his arms over his chest. Kakashi sighed. Anyway, the first thing I want to teach you is water walking. No! Exploded Sasuke. Screw water walking. Stupid little tricks, that's all you've ever taught us. Camping, tree climbing, ninja etiquette, perception training, water walking, none of that is going to make me stronger. It's been months and I still haven't even activated my Sharingan. You're just wasting my time, Sasuke began Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, interjected Naruto. I think I can help Sasuke activate his precious Sharingan. Everyone looked at Naruto direction. How? Asked Sasuke angrily, still huffing from his outburst. Well, you said you wanted to fight, didn't you? A real fight, Naruto, said Kakashi. One day, Kakashi-sensei, said Naruto. Give me 1 day. If I can't do it till tomorrow, I won't insist on it any longer. Sasuke glared at the blonde grimly, clenching and unclenching his fists. Kakashi sighed. 1 day. Just 1 day. 1 day is all I need, said Naruto quietly. An explosion erupted from his left, and Sasuke stumbled and fell. He rolled to his right, barely avoiding the hail of kunai. The cuts he received earlier pulsed painfully, reminding him of why he can't afford to be hit by Naruto's kunai, not even a little bit. Each one was poisoned. He ground his teeth in anger. Curse all poison users to hell. He dodged quickly, evading 2 successive explosions that shook the place he was standing on just a few seconds ago. When he sought to fight Naruto all out, he didn't expect this sort of thing. Naruto refused to face him head-on, opting to hit and run, wearing him down with explosive notes and poisoned weapons, both of which he seemed to have in inexhaustible quantities. And he never, ever gave Sasuke a reprieve to catch his breath and gather his thoughts. The blonde kept him under constant pressure. Chasing after Naruto was dangerous since he seemed able to set up traps behind him in seconds, and had by now turned the surrounding forest into a giant death trap. Sasuke was tired, in pain, and his ego was screaming in anguish. He was going to be defeated without having landed a single strike on Naruto. And then Naruto landed on the ground some distance away from Sasuke. Sasuke smiled. In fact, he even cackled softly under his breath. Perfect. After all this time of trying to catch the blonde, the idiot just came to him instead. Even tired and poisoned, he was still better than this dunce in direct combat. Naruto made a seal for the clone and Sasuke frowned. Naruto's clone jutsu was too versatile to be taken lightly. Clone superimposition, announced Naruto. Nothing happened. And then Naruto charged at Sasuke, only instead of a single Naruto, 5 sprung from the place Naruto was standing on. They weaved right through one another like incorporeal wraiths, merging and splitting randomly, confusing Sasuke's eyes and making it impossible to respond properly. When one of the fused Narutos attacked, their limbs split in multiple instances, and if Sasuke chose the wrong one, he merely dispelled the clone, while the real limb landed a hit on him. Naruto would periodically repeat the technique, which seemed effortless to him, making it impossible for Sasuke to simply dispel the clones. Sasuke ground his teeth in anger, desperately trying to find a way to distinguish the real Naruto from the clones. There has to be a pattern. There has to be. But there was too many of them, and their splitting impossible to predict. And then Naruto and the clones suddenly jumped back and fused into one. Sasuke, Naruto began. For a rookie of the year, you really suck at this. Is taijutsu the only thing you can do? Sasuke flipped through the seals and breathed a fireball at Naruto in rage, only for Naruto to throw a kunai at the incoming ball of fire. Before Sasuke could understand what the blonde was planning to do, the fire suddenly swirled around the kunai and disappeared. He narrowly dodged the incoming piece of metal, which embedded into the tree beside him. Sasuke stared dumbfounded at the strange characters that covered the surface of the kunai, their glow steadily fading from view. What the hell? He blurted out. They're my absorbing kunai, said Naruto. Isn't sealing just awesome? Sasuke gritted his teeth, banishing his confusion and shifting into his taijutsu stance. No matter what tricks you pull out, you will still fail, said Sasuke. We both know you are no match for me, either in taijutsu or ninjutsu. Naruto chuckled. Sasuke's determination faltered a little. This wasn't the reaction he was trying to evoke. Sasuke, said Naruto, wearing a confident smile that made Sasuke's blood freeze in his veins. Do you really think I intend to do this fight on your terms? I called this fight because I'm thoroughly sick of your attitude and intend to do something about it. Tell me, Sasuke, do you think anyone would really miss you if you failed to come back after this? What? Said Sasuke, before Naruto's killing intent hit him like a tidal wave. Drawing a kunai, Naruto charged at Sasuke with an utterly crazed expression that chilled Sasuke to the bone. He's not going to, he couldn't possibly mean to. Naruto plunged the kunai at Sasuke, and his hands split into 6. And Sasuke knew he was going to die. The blonde really was trying to kill him. The chances that he would choose the right arm were minuscule, and even if he succeeds, Naruto would just try again and again, until Sasuke was no more. But he couldn't die now. Not yet, before he even had a chance to face his brother again. He can't. He won't. Time slowed down, and the world became clearer and sharper. Sasuke found himself staring at the kunai in front of his face, stopped by his own hand holding Naruto's wrist. Clones became obvious as such, and their strange movements somehow easier to understand. Gazing into his reflection in the blade, Sasuke could see 2 red eyes staring back at him. His attacker grinned brightly at his bloodlust suddenly gone. Congratulations, Sasuke. Told ya I could awaken your Sharingan. Sasuke suddenly saw red. Dope. Sasuke hissed. I'm going to kill you. You have to catch me first, said Naruto, effortlessly breaking contact and disappearing into the trees. Furious, Sasuke followed after him. What do you mean no? Roared Gato. It's not my problem, said Zabuza gruffly, but these ninja are destroying my operations. Screeched Gato. They already killed most of my men and destroyed all the safe houses. What am I paying you for if not to prevent exactly these kind of things? You're paying us to kill the bridge builder, said Zabuza crankily. It's not my problem if a few thugs get killed by a couple of passing missing neens. If you want me to care, you'll have to pay me extra. Gato looked ready to explode. Why you greedy? Zabuza laughed throatily. Someone like you calling me greedy? Get a grip. You said yourself that everything carries a price. Now if you'll excuse me, 20,000 Rio, said Gato. Please. 45,000 or I refuse to even talk about it. 30,000, 50,000, and half of the money up front. Don't test my patience, Gato. Gato growled. Fine. But there better not be any repeats of things like today. Don't worry, said Zabuza. There won't be. Once bought, I stay bought. Good, said Gato. Now about these ninja. This morning 2 men dressed in black cloaks with red clouds walked into this land and began. The door exploded, sending splinters everywhere. Gato screamed and dropped to the ground, while Zabuza merely unsheathed his sword in a practiced movement and shielded his face with it. 2 men in black cloaks stepped into view. Hey, Kakuzu, said the one with a giant 3-blade scythe on his back. Zabuza wondered how good he is with that thing. It's been a while since he fought with a true weapon user. Is this the man we're looking for? He was pointing at Gato, who immediately paled and crawled behind Zabuza for protection. Yes, the covered one said. So, these were the missing nin you were talking about? Said Zabuza to Gato trembling behind him, who nodded vigorously. Zabuza-sama! Shouted Haku, barging into the room from the other side. What's happening? I heard. Zabuza frowned. Haku's chest was still covered in bandages, as he still needed a day or so of rest, but here he is, disobeying Zabuza's orders to check up on his master. As if Zabuza needs his worry. He's not the one who ended up better than after all. In these past few days Zabuza became aware just how attached he is to the kid. You don't know what you have until you're about to lose it, they say, and Zabuza discovered that he'd really not have Haku die on him. Was he really getting so soft? Hey Kakuzu, who are these 2? The scythe wielder asked. We can kill them, right? Yes, said Kakuzu. The one with the mask over his face is Zabuza of the Bloody Mist. He has quite the large bounty on his head. I was going to claim his bounty one of these days anyway. I wouldn't be so confident about that, said Zabuza gruffly, placing his sword over his shoulder. But since I was just hired to take you out, I guess this just makes things easier for me. I kill a couple of bounty hunters after me and get paid for it to boot. Haku appeared by his side and Zabuza couldn't help but grin. These 2 were going down before and now, with Haku by his side, they had no chance at all. This was going to be a piece of cake. Sasuke glared at Kakashi, who was chuckling softly at his own attempts at humor. The really infuriating thing was that Sasuke never managed to catch the blonde after activating the Sharingan, and ended up simply collapsing from exhaustion and spending the next day bedridden from poisoning. Where is that dope, anyway? Asked Sasuke. At the bridge, with Sakura, said Kakashi. They already mastered water walking yesterday, so I made them guard Tizuna while he works on the bridge. They did it in under an hour too, you know. Sasuke frowned. It has been 3 hours and he couldn't keep at the surface for even a moment. He was really sick of being the person with the worst chakra control in the team. Unfortunately, his Sharingan couldn't help him in learning this, as water walking involved no hand seals. Seal-less techniques were a matter of chakra control, and thus had to be learned the hard way. Hell, he couldn't even copy Naruto's techniques because they all had the same hand seals as Academy ones and the extra effects were pure chakra control. The gushing descriptions of Sharingan's powers in his family scrolls didn't mention this deficiency. He could have killed me, said Sasuke. I'm sure he knew what he was doing, said Kakashi. He would have stopped if. That's not what I mean, said Sasuke. He has no combat techniques, and he's no match for me at taijutsu, but he could have killed me there if he wanted to. He could have killed me without me ever laying a finger on him. Well, said Kakashi carefully. Maybe now you'll pay attention to all those useless things I'm trying to teach you that have no apparent combat application. Direct combat is not all there is to being a ninja, and Naruto is not the only ninja that prefers indirect methods of dealing with opponents. Your fight with those mist ninjas should have clued you into that fact. Sasuke remained silent. There may very well be some truth in that, but, Kakashi-sensei, shouted Sakura, bursting into the scene. You have to come quick. Naruto is being attacked. Chapter 9 Greed. Kakuzu waited, carefully studying Zabuza and the effeminate boy that came to his aid. Truthfully, Zabuza didn't worry him much. The man's abilities were well known and were unlikely to have changed. It was Zabuza's partner that worried him. The boy was an unknown, and his movements pointed to years of experience in the thick of battle, as much as could be expected of someone traveling with the demon of the mist, really. Zabuza charged, but curiously, not at Kakuzu and Haiden. Instead, he bashed his sword into the nearby wall. For one short moment Kakuzu was confused at the meaning of the action, but then water began gushing out of the destroyed section of the wall, and Kakuzu mentally sighed. He was hoping to keep these two away from water sources, but it seemed he forgot all about the simple plumbing. A plan already formed in his mind, Kakuzu remained rooted to the spot, his expression as emotionless as ever, even as Haiden's face served as a testament to his partner's surprise. Not that it took a lot to surprise Haiden, of course. Before even the dust coming from the destroyed section settled down, the gushing water turned to thick mist that suffused the room, lowering visibility down to nothing. But though this would likely be the end of most ninja, Kakuzu simply wasn't going to fall to a trick like this. Visibility really wasn't much of an issue. Almost instinctively he created a water clone and left it in his place before jumping up and silently sticking onto the ceiling. He was just in time, as the clone was almost instantly decapitated where he left him. That's when Haiden finally caught up with what was happening and, as was his usual reaction when he couldn't see anything, started screaming and spinning his damn scythe around like a headless maniac. The sad thing was, that stupid reaction was surprisingly effective, though only because Haiden only needed to nick a person slightly to seal their fate. Drawing upon his elemental hearts, Kakuzu did a two-part technique, creating a miniature cyclone beneath him with wind manipulation, in order to gather the mist to a tight spot, and using water manipulation to condense the mist back into liquid form. If he hadn't been more careful, he would have never noticed when someone hijacked his technique and perverted it against him. As it was, he jumped away just in time to avoid the icy spike that shot out of the condensing mist and pierced the ceiling at the spot he was recently standing on. Through the thinned-out mist, Kakuzu spotted the boy that was attacking him on the other side of the room, in the process of finishing his next technique. Kakuzu put his hands together, hardening his skin, just as the icy construction that tried to impale him explosively shattered into thousands of needles that peppered the room. Zabuza used his giant sword and clever positioning to get out of the blast unscathed. The ice user made a shield out of ice to protect himself, and the needles bounced off harmlessly upon hitting Kakuzu's skin. Haiden took the assault head-on, screaming as the needles of ice turned him into a human pincushion. It was a lot creepier when one realized he was screaming in pleasure. Kakuzu debated the merits of launching a counterattack on the kid, but decided against it. He was honestly curious about the boy. Was he of that bloodline? That would be rather valuable. Every village, except perhaps Mist, would pay a fortune for the boy. Especially if Kakuzu could capture him alive. He had to be sure though, not every ice technique required a bloodline user. He supposed he'd just have to stay on defensive and see if the kid would use one of his bloodline's signature techniques when he grew frustrated. Behind him, Zabuza decided to take advantage of Haiden's apparent incapacitation from the needles to impale him. Haiden simply soaked the blow, using the closeness to bite Zabuza's arm. Shocked that Haiden wasn't dead yet and wary of tricks, Zabuza jumped back trying to understand what was happening. Even as Zabuza circled him in confusion, Haiden used the blood seeping from the gaping stomach wound Zabuza inflicted upon him to draw a circle beneath his feet. So much for Zabuza. The only question now was how long was Haiden going to toy with him before he finished him off. A dome of mirrors materialized around him, and Kakuzu resisted the urge to smile. It seemed his momentary shift of attention was too good of an opportunity for the kid to pass up, and he really was a survivor of the Mist's bloodline hunts. Kakuzu remained motionless, even as the boy's image multiplied across every mirror of the dome. Time to get this show on the road. It seems you are worth something, kid, Kakuzu said emotionlessly. It's been a while since I fought one of your ilk. I should have known there was no way Mist managed to exterminate all of you. The boy's image shifted uneasily, apparently not expecting that kind of reaction. He was probably used to his opponents being completely stupefied by his technique. No one has ever escaped from this technique alive, the boy said softly, needles suddenly appearing in his hands. Kakuzu snorted lightly. How low the mighty have fallen. The boy's ancestors were some of the more terrifying opponents Kakuzu had the opportunity to fight. Compared to them, this kid was a joke. Still, his bloodline was a valuable commodity, and Kakuzu intended to collect every ryo the boy was worth. Really, this trip just kept getting better and better. All he really wanted was to collect the dozens of bounties placed on Gato's head, and maybe raid the mogul's money stash if feasible. Now he had the opportunity to collect Zabuza's bounty too, and get his hands on one of the last specimens of a powerful bloodline limit. Jackpot, the boy attacked. A wave of needles sped at Kakuzu from all directions, aimed to kill. Kakuzu didn't even try to dodge. He discreetly flashed through hand seals and his skin hardened again. The needles impacted Kakuzu and promptly bounced off, as if they hit a slab of rock instead of exposed flesh. Most people would be somewhat discouraged at this. After all, Kakuzu had withstood the boy's needle barrage twice already with almost no effort. But the kid didn't seem deterred. He continued peppering Kakuzu with needles, apparently having deduced, correctly, that as long as he's maintaining this particular technique, he can neither move nor perform other techniques. If Kakuzu was a normal ninja, the boy would be correct in assuming that all he had to do was press the attack until Kakuzu ran out of chakra to maintain the technique. But Kakuzu wasn't a normal ninja. Wordlessly, Kakuzu willed his lightning heart to extrude from his body. Normally, Kakuzu had a brief moment of surprise to exploit whenever he brought his hearts into the fray. The blank white masks and writhing black threads tended to make people pause, even if for just a moment. But the moment his heart shot forth from his back, some kind of recognition seemed to fly over Haku's face, as if he had faced something similar before. A nova of electricity pulsed around Kakuzu, enveloping the dome, but Haku was no longer inside. Calmly and purposely, Kakuzu walked away from his spot to go after the boy while the dome of ice, no longer maintained, collapsed around him. Damn. So close. Things would be so much easier if he just needed to kill the kid by any means necessary. But if he was going to get any profit out of the boy, he needed his body relatively intact, and he'd really like to have him alive if possible. So fire and wind were out. He needed the earth heart for his own protection. Using the water heart would be just make battlefield conditions more favorable to the boy because of the powers granted by his bloodline. So he was left with lightning. Should be enough though. A maniacal laugh reached his ears. It seemed Haiden was ready to finish things on his side. Now if he could just… Zabuza-sama! Kakuzu fired a burst of lightning at Haku, but it was too late. The boy walked into an ice mirror and disappeared, no doubt rushing to his master's side. Kakuzu hissed softly in annoyance, idly thinking if it wouldn't be easier to simply use his wind heart to cut the kid into pieces and then auction off the chunks. He turned and, sure enough, the boy was butting into the fight between Haiden and Zabuza. Hey! Haiden's voice rang. What the hell do you oof? Before Kakuzu could figure out a non-destructive way to disable the boy, the kid snatched Haiden's scythe and used the fact that it was connected to him with a chain to drag Haiden away from his circle, neutralizing the moron's technique, while at the same time performing a one-handed technique to create a wall of ice between them and Kakuzu. Severely annoyed, Kakuzu extruded his wind heart and sliced the wall of ice to pieces, but it was too late. When he got through, Zabuza and the kid were gone. Haiden was yelling curses at him, half buried in the chunks of the wall, saying he should warn him when he did things like that. Haiden! Kakuzu growled. Tell me you didn't let them get away? The fuck you're on, Stitchface. I would have got him if you didn't bury me in this shit and fucked everything up. What the hell did you? Kakuzu snatched the spike out of Haiden's hand and impaled him through his left eye before walking away in search for Gato. What the fuck was that for? Kakuzu. He fell silent when Kakuzu casually electrocuted him with his lightning heart. Immortal or not, it would take him a while before his nerves unscramble enough to enable speech. Fortunately, his stupid partner wasn't entirely useless, and Kakuzu found Gato soon enough, shaking and whimpering, his hands nailed to the wall so he can't get away. Knowing Haiden's personality, he was lucky Haiden didn't just kill the man, he still wanted to get Gato's bank account numbers and stashes of valuables. The man looked like someone who would give everything away just to be left alive. Not that Kakuzu had any intention of sparing him, but whatever. Come to think of it, this probably wasn't much of a setback. Those two aren't going to disappear anywhere. Both Zabuza and the boy were injured and exhausted, and had no support from anyone. Let them have their brief reprieve. As soon as he was finished with Gato, he would take care of the loose ends. The mission comes first, after all. If he was in a good mood, he might even take Haiden with him. The day began well in Naruto's opinion. He woke up early and had a breakfast with everyone except Sasuke and Inari. Sasuke was still sleeping off the effects of poison Naruto used on him, and Tsunami was still leery about letting her son near Naruto ever since their last confrontation. Despite that minor source of tension, Naruto felt that Tsunami and Tazuna had warmed up to him by now, as evidenced by their decision to have a casual chat with him during breakfast. After breakfast, Kakashi led them to his hand-picked training spot, as he called it, where he taught them water walking. It was a breeze, really, for both him and Sakura. Kakashi had tried spicing it up by throwing rocks into the water to disturb the surface, but their control was too good for that to work. Finally, after several attempts of making them fall in, Kakashi gave up and simply told them to spar on the surface of the water. Despite Naruto's skepticism, Sakura was surprisingly good. She lasted a great deal longer than he would have guessed before she ran out of chakra reserves, and she took the spar more seriously than ever before. After a while, Kakashi simply sent them to guard Tazuna at the bridge, saying he was going to wake up Sasuke and work on him for a while. For once Naruto wasn't pissed that the Uchiha was getting one-on-one training. He blew off a lot of steam when he awakened Sasuke's Sharingan. Sasuke can get all the private lessons he wants for now. While they were on their way to the bridge, Naruto couldn't resist asking Sakura about her sudden increase in chakra reserves. He was quite surprised when it turned out that she was building up her reserves by running up and down trees while he was away gathering information on Gato's retinue. That was an exercise Kakashi had given to Sakura back when they first learned tree walking, but Naruto knew for a fact she didn't bother with it until now. Naruto was pleased. Sakura beginning to train could only be a good thing for him. Maybe now their spars will be something other than a waste of time. So anyway, the day began well and continued getting better as time passed. The sky was clear blue, temperature just right, a light breeze blowing. What more could one wish? It was merely a calm before the storm hit, as it turned out. At first, the bridge duty was quite mundane. The workers were completing the bridge at a fast pace, milling around the construction site like ants, while Naruto and Sakura watched over them in case Gato sent someone to assault the construction site against every indication to the contrary. Naruto had spent about quarter of his chakra reserves to scatter detection seals in various spots, and was reasonably confident they would not be caught off guard, so he was relaxed, chatting with the pair of workers that were taking a break at the moment. Anyway, said Naruto, talking to one of the workers, here I am, minding my own business, putting slugs in Irika's drawers, when this guy comes up to me and says, a twinge of pain on his palm jolted Naruto to full alert. One of his detection seals had detected a massive source of chakra coming. He jumped on his feet, alerting Sakura and the workers that something was wrong. Sakura took a fighting stance beside him, glancing in his direction in a silent plea for an explanation, while the workers retreated in the back to observe from a safe distance. Naruto just tapped on his palm in response to Sakura's questioning gaze, and she nodded, evidently understanding. He huffed. Fighting on the bridge was about the worst choice of battlefield for him. He could not use explosive notes, or he might bring down the whole bridge down, and his maneuvering tactics were not very effective on featureless concrete. Not to mention that the enemy might purposely choose to target the workers to divert his attention. Come on, said Naruto to Sakura, motioning in the direction of the disturbance. We'll confront the enemy in the foliage. Kakashi said we should never separate from Tazuna. She protested. I know, but we'll be at a disadvantage if we fight on the bridge. I take responsibility for any consequences. Sakura frowned, clearly unhappy, but followed anyway. Naruto focused on his senses. Strange, the enemy was pretty loud for a ninja. They seemed to be running through the forest in a panicked run, as if fleeing something. He gave a quick gesture to Sakura to halt, and launched a kunai at the spot their enemy was about to occupy, but it was immediately deflected. The enemy consisted of Zabuza and that Haku person that he wounded in their previous fight. Although for the life of his he couldn't understand why these two chose to launch an attack now, they clearly weren't in any shape to be fighting. They looked like shit, to be frank. Haku's ragged breathing clearly told Naruto that he still wasn't fully healed from the wound Naruto inflicted from him, and Zabuza was bleeding from his flank and using Haku as support to remain moving. What game were these two playing? Well, whatever. Naruto reached into his weapons pouch. Wait! Yelled Haku, thrusting his hand in front of him to show he wasn't armed. We didn't come here to fight. We seek sanctuary. That's right, sanctuary. Huh? Asked Naruto incredulously. Even Zabuza seemed to look baffled, looking at Haku with a curious expression, as if asking his partner in crime, what the hell are you talking about? We're being attacked, said Haku as Zabuza did his best to stand on his own power, and failing. Even now our assailants are in pursuit. That is, if you can protect us. Brat, said Zabuza with obvious effort, cutting Haku off. Where is Kakashi? You and the girl can't handle these two. That's none of your business, said Naruto coolly. Now tell me what's this about, or I'll assume it's a trick and initiate combat. Zabuza hissed in frustration, clearly annoyed but unable to do anything. There are two men in black cloaks after us, said Haku. They're bounty hunters after Zabuza's head. If your sensei protects us, we are willing to provide information in exchange. Information that Konoha will find very valuable. Black cloaks? Asked Naruto with rising dread. He hoped he was wrong. With red clouds? Haku and Zabuza stared at Naruto incredulously. Yeah, rasped Zabuza. You know them? Naruto swallowed. He knew something like this would happen, just knew. The infamous Akatsuki, Sasori's former employers and seekers of the Jinchuriki, the organization that Sasori has warned him about plenty of times, in a tone that spoke clearly about the threat they pose to their targets. If they catch you, they will extract the Kyuubi, killing you in the process. According to Sasori, they wouldn't move to capture Jinchuriki for a few more years, and yet, they were here. Here, in this irrelevant land, precisely at the moment that he and his team are outside of the village for the very first time. It couldn't be a coincidence, therefore it wasn't. Akatsuki had come for him, Sakura said Naruto. Go tell Kakashi that I'm being attacked by two S-ranked missing nin and that he should come as soon as possible. But Sakura protested. Go! Naruto shouted, his eyes flashing red. Sakura looked mortified for a second before turning around and running off in Kakashi's direction. Naruto turned towards Zabuza and Haku and walked off towards them. Brat, began Zabuza, what do you think? Shut up and lie down, said Naruto crankily. If I'm going to get out of this alive, I'll need all the help I can get, and you two cannot fight in that condition. You mean, began Haku. I'm a medic nin, said Naruto. I'll get to you soon enough. While I'm working on Zabuza, you can tell me about those two. I thought you knew them, said Zabuza as Naruto placed his glowing hand over the wound on his flank. I know what they represent, said Naruto. They're not the only ones of their kind. It's strange, said Haku. One uses some kind of autonomous contraption that can do lightning techniques. It reminded me of that thing you used against me when we fought. The other, talentless hack, spat Zabuza. He throws that scythe around aimlessly. No skill at all. If I knew about that trick of his, don't ever let him draw blood, said Haku. He uses opponent's blood to form some kind of link between himself and his target. When he hurts himself, the target is hurt in the same way. He seems to be immune to physical damage. Naruto's face twisted in a sour expression. He was pretty sure now which two Akatsuki members he was going to face. There was no way he could win this one, even with the help of these two, especially since he had no intention of healing them completely. If they turn on him later, he wanted to have an ace up his sleeve. A bit of pressure applied to the right spot, and these healed wounds would burst at the seams. But maybe he could hold them back till Kakashi arrived. As far as I could discern, the link is dependent on a circle he draws on the ground beneath him, continued Haku. But Naruto was only absent-mindedly listening to his analysis. He already had a lot more accurate information on Haiden from Sasori. It was rather impressive, however, how much Haku uncovered from that one brief moment of combat. He's mine, growled Zabuza. He won't catch me like that again. I'll cut off his limbs and chuck his body into the sea. Then he can brag about his immortality to the fishes and crabs. There, said Naruto. How much time do we got? They'll probably be here soon enough, said Haku. As soon as they finish their business with Gato. Gato, huh? Began Naruto. While we're on this particular subject, Gato is as good as dead, said Zabuza, as if reading his mind. The mission to kill the bridge builder is cancelled due to inability to collect payment. Oh good, said Naruto. Now let's see how long we can last against those two. Kakuzu, you asshole! Slow down a little. Kakuzu resisted the urge to attack Haiden. He really should get his temper under control. After all, if it weren't for his tendency to flip out and kill his partners, he wouldn't be saddled with this moron in the first place. He kept his speed high enough to keep Haiden trailing some distance away to communicate his displeasure at his partner's earlier slip-up, but refrained from loosing him completely. He had learned from experience that leaving Haiden unattended during missions created more troubles than it was worth. His quarry was waiting for them. As soon as Kakuzu entered the denser part of the vegetation, a wooden log swung towards him. Kakuzu gave the incoming piece of wood a casual glance before dozens of black threads erupted from his body, tearing it to shreds. It was a good thing he hardened his skin just in case, because the pieces exploded without warning immediately afterwards. Thrown back somewhat and his cloak ruined, but otherwise unharmed, Kakuzu immediately extruded his wind heart and started firing wildly, cutting down the vegetation with ease. He wasn't in the mood for hide and seek. Sure enough, when the dust settled, his two opponents were standing among the rubble. Only they weren't who he thought they were. The Hayatan user was there, true, but the other one was another boy, not Zabuza. A boy with a Konoha Hittite, even. Kakuzu looked around and noticed that Haiden was nowhere to be seen. He sighed, He didn't need to be told to know what had happened. Zabuza decided to separate them and pick them off one by one, and was right now trying to finish Haiden off first. He looked at the two boys in front of him, who didn't even try to take advantage of his seeming absent-mindedness. They were hoping to buy some time, he realized. Zabuza thought these two could hold him off. That kind of pissed him off, actually. Kakuzu immediately extruded his fire and lightning hearts, using the lightning heart to try and incapacitate the Hayatan user while fire and wind hearts combined their effort to incinerate the other ninja. Kakuzu didn't really know who the little Konoha ninja was supposed to be, but he figured he was just a tag-along of no consequence. A wave of blue fire sped off towards the blonde who, amusingly, threw a kunai at it. Kakuzu was a lot less amused when the kunai sucked a portion of the advancing firewall into itself and created a hole in it, allowing the blonde to come out completely unscathed. Worse, before Kakuzu could respond to this, the kid summoned a veritable army of clones, easily 50 of them, and only half of them were his actual clones. The others were images of the Hayatan user. They scattered around Kakuzu, darting around and occasionally merging with one another before splitting again. How annoying. He could pick out the real one from the clones usually, but this silly little spectacle actually hurt his eyes a bit, and it wasn't something he wanted to bother with right now. He really wanted to get the Hayatan user intact, but if this was the game they wanted to play, he'd go back to his earlier idea of harvesting the pieces. Kakuzu's wind heart began firing again. Naga coiled itself into a protective sphere around Naruto, shielding him from the massive electrical discharge one of Kakuzu's hearts launched in his direction. The stream of fire Naga spewed at the heart in retaliation was almost lazily intercepted by a jet of water from one of the other hearts. The fight wasn't going well. Interesting, Kakuzu said. I never knew Konoha had puppeteers in their employ. Naruto didn't say anything. Nothing worked against this guy. His threads cut up anything that got too close him or his hearts. His skin was like solid rock, and his hearts were making it hard to gather one's thoughts and come up with a plan to tackle him effectively. The traps Naruto had set up in the forest were rendered defunct at the very start, when Kakuzu simply sliced up all the trees in the area. Naruto had tried confusing him with clones, but he simply used area-wide techniques to disperse the doubles. His absorbing kunai were completely spent, and his explosive ones were simply neutralized by the hearts before getting close to the man, Kakuzu having wizened quickly about underestimating simple kunai he was using. Naruto glanced at Naga's severed tail that Kakuzu's thread sliced off when it got too close to one of the hearts. Considering the amount of integrity seals with which Naga's chassis was suffused, the fact that the threads sliced through it so easily was nothing short of amazing, in a bad way. If Naga succumbed to the threads so easily, damn, where was Kakashi already? Or Zabuza for that matter? The missing nin had assured Naruto he'd deal with Haiden in a few minutes at most and help them fight Kakuzu, but he had been gone for awfully long time now. He glanced at Haku, who was darting around, trying to bypass Kakuzu's hearts and approach the man somehow. Naruto didn't know why exactly. Haku's arsenal didn't seem to be any more impressive than Naruto's, at least when facing someone like Kakuzu. Getting close would just result in the ice kid getting chopped up in an eye blink, and then Kakuzu seemed to have had quite enough of their stalling, and fire and wind hearts rushed towards Naruto, preparing for that damnable combined attack of theirs. Apparently the fact that Naruto used Naga for protection told Kakuzu he was out of his absorbing kunai and was now finally open to this particular method attack. The hearts belched a wall of blue flame towards him. Naga wouldn't serve as a shield against that. It was resistant to physical attacks, which is what earth and water techniques really amounted to, and, as a piece of wood, it wasn't conductive to electricity. But it could be burned down. And while Naruto could dodge this attack, he couldn't do it with Naga in tow. But if he left Naga to be destroyed, he'd be picked off by Kakuzu in his next attack. He wasn't as fast as Haku, and Naga was the only reason he was able to last this long. Naruto grinned. Almost cackled, really? Kakuzu had painted him into a corner, a total checkmate if you will. It was time to try completely crazy ideas. He left Naga and dodged the blast, performing the clone superimposition variant before he even finished rolling along the ground. He didn't need to look to know there was nothing but ashes left of his beloved puppet that he had worked on for so long. He rushed the fire mask and the threads attached to it lashed out at Naruto, only to be confused by the superimposed images of his clones. Closing in, Naruto slapped the puppet-destroying tag on the gleaming white surface of the mask and pumped as much chakra as he could. For a moment he thought his effort was for naught, but then the threads fell apart, and the mask collapsed on the ground inert. Naruto started laughing, even as Kakuzu and his heart stopped in their tracks at this sudden turn of events. I knew it! It was a puppet, said Naruto with a laugh, before mumbling the next part quietly to himself. Thank Kami. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed in rage at the loss of one of his hearts. Suddenly the water, lightning, and wind hearts fired a synchronized attack. The water heart fired a spray of water in the air, the lightning heart electrified it, and the wind heart blew it in Naruto's direction with massive speed. Naruto couldn't even react as the cloud of electrified mist hit him, his muscles suddenly going rigid. His nerve endings scrambled, he fell to the ground like a lifeless doll. Though he could not move, he could clearly see from his spot on the ground that Kakuzu wasted no time in finishing him off. The lightning heart was clearly about to fry him to death. It would take some time before he could move normally, so he was pretty much done for. Oh well, at least he managed to take out one of that bastard's hearts before he went down. That had to be worth something, right? But instead of dying, his world blurred for a moment, and he found himself on a tree branch, held by unknown hands. His vision was a bit hazy, and his passage of time uncertain, but it seemed to him that everything was quiet for a considerable amount of time. Finally, after a while, he realized his unknown savior was Kakashi. Huh, yo, Kakashi said with a cheerful smile. Naruto didn't respond. Couldn't actually. While he could finally feel his limbs again, he didn't have anywhere near the fine control to speak yet. Kakashi of the Sharingan, said Kakuzu. This day just keeps getting better and better. In one day I get Gato, Momochi Zabuza, a Hayatan user, and Hatake Kakashi. All that money will put me months ahead of schedule. You know, said Kakashi. Most people would be a little concerned about their survival when surrounded by so much enemies instead of thinking about money. Kakuzu outstretched his hand to his left, casually catching Zabuza's blade with his hand. Zabuza jumped back, using his sword to repel the threads trying to cut him up. Haku reappeared beside him, ready to defend his master. Naruto would have snorted if he could. Now he shows up? What happened to Haiden? Asked Kakuzu. He kept getting up, so I cut him up into little pieces and scattered them as far as I could manage, said Zabuza. Kakuzu sighed. Fine. I'll sew him up later when I deal with you. Oh yeah? Asked Kakashi on the branch. The ground beneath Kakuzu exploded and another Kakashi emerged, his hand glowing with dancing arcs of electricity that chirped like a flock of birds. Without hesitation, Kakashi plunged his lightning-sheathed hand right through Kakuzu's chest. That technique you used to shrug off Zabuza's attack is an earth technique, said Kakashi, staring into surprised eyes of Kakuzu. It cannot stop Chidori. Kakuzu's eyes narrowed, and now it was Kakashi's turn to be surprised as hundreds of black threads shot out from Kakuzu's body and tore Kakashi to pieces. Except that Kakashi simply dissolved into smoke. Shadow clone, said Kakuzu crankily, integrating the water heart into his body to continue living. Can you tell me what's going on here? Asked Kakashi suddenly. Naruto realized his sensei was talking to him. I just ran my hand through his chest, and he barely even flinched. Hearts, croaked Naruto. Monster things. Are his hearts. Gotta kill them all. Ah, said Kakashi. It's been a while since someone managed to destroy even one of my hearts, said Kakuzu. For me to lose two in a single day. Fortunately, there'll be plenty of material to make new ones once I'm done here. Hearts are elements, continued Naruto, a bit surer in his ability to speak. I destroyed fire. You destroyed earth. I see, said Kakashi. So he has water, wind, and lightning left? Yes, confirmed Naruto. Which heart did he take into himself just now? Water. Kakashi nodded and put Naruto on the nearby branch. Naruto tried to move his limbs and found that he at least had basic locomotion, even if it wasn't enough for fighting. Before Kakuzu could order his hearts to start trashing the area again to flush them out, Kakashi darted into the fray, using elemental techniques to keep the hearts occupied. Naruto watched the fight for a few moments, but was soon distracted by the soft sound of Zabuza landing on the branch beside him. What are you doing here? Asked Naruto, his speech finally getting semblance of normality again. Kakashi-sensei needs your help. He was honestly surprised when Zabuza smacked him over the head with the dull edge of his sword and his world went dark. Where do you think you're going? Kakuzu asked, his hearts blocking Kakashi's way. Kakashi resisted the urge to hiss. His student was just kidnapped by Zabuza, and this monster of a man clearly wasn't going to let him break off and go after him. Thinking of Zabuza made Kakashi's blood boil. He didn't know a lot of things about what happened here, but he had deduced that he and Naruto had entered some kind of mutual truce to deal with this new threat. Even though backstabbing one's allies was pretty common in the ninja world, he personally could never stand for it. When this was over, he would track down Zabuza and have some heartfelt discussion with him, even if he had to go to the edge of the earth to get him. He'd love to create another shadow clone, But this missing nin was strong and he would need every drop of his chakra reserves to come out victorious here. He quickly glanced around. Sasuke and Sakura were on their way here, catching up with him, and that was bad. Sasuke was very valuable in a monetary sense, and Kakashi's enemy was a bounty hunter. He was hard-pressed enough as it is, he didn't need a genin to worry about as well. The worst thing was that he couldn't even send them to pursue Zabuza. They were neither fast enough to catch up to the man, nor strong enough to defeat him if they did. Damn this whole situation, damn it to hell. It's alright, Kakashi-san, said a voice behind him. You can go and retrieve your genin, and I'll take care of things on this end. Kakashi whirled around, only to face a red-headed teen that had somehow snuck up on him. That was a considerable achievement, even if he was engrossed in other things at the moment. And why would I agree to such a thing? Kakuzu asked, his two free-roaming hearts maneuvering to prevent Kakashi's escape. Hatake Kakashi has quite a bounty on his head, whereas I don't even know who you are, kid. Honestly, the kid just made the softest of sighs and threw a scroll into the air, unsealing a cadre of puppets. Why are you still here? The kid asked, and Kakashi realized the boy was referring to him. You do want to retrieve your genin, right? Kakashi frowned at the boy, but nodded and faced towards the masked bounty hunter, ready to exploit any openings to break away from the fight. He didn't have to wait long. The boy's puppets were essentially immune to electricity, and their incessant attacks from multiple directions forced the bounty hunter to concentrate on defending himself. The moment he spotted the chance, Kakashi used an earth technique to sink into the ground and distanced himself from the battlefield. Nothing had gone as planned in this mission. Haku didn't like this. He had done plenty of things he didn't like in Zabuza-sama's employ, but rarely had he performed treachery that was so blatant. The blonde genin wasn't some shady criminal who was planning on double-crossing them the moment they turned their backs on him, or a bounty hunter after them. The Konoha ninja helped them, and was promptly betrayed for his troubles. Haku didn't like this at all. Zabuza-sama, began Haku. Shut up, Zabuza snapped. I know what you're going to say and I don't want to hear it. We need the money and this kid is clearly worth a lot to someone if they're willing to send such powerful ninja after him. But they didn't, said Haku. They sent them after Gato. Please, spat Zabuza. Those two after a small fry like Gato? And besides, you saw how the kid reacted to their presence. Clearly he thought those two freaks were after him. Which doesn't mean he's right, insisted Haku. The ninja with the monsters inside of him treated the boy more like a nuisance than a target when we fought. I don't think he even knew who the kid was. He's worth a lot, said Zabuza firmly. I'm sure of it. We'll just beat the reason out of him and collect the bounty later. Haku hung his head glumly. He had a bad feeling about all this. Zabuza's theory was very speculative, with unknown risks and rewards. But surely his master knew this. If Zabuza-sama was willing to go ahead with it anyway, it meant their monetary situation was a lot worse than Haku had been told. He looked at the tied-up genin some distance away. The boy was still unconscious. Why have we stopped then? Asked Haku. I don't think Kakashi is someone who's going to give up on one of his genin easily. Especially if he's as important as you suspect. That bounty hunter will keep him busy for a while, grunted Zabuza dismissively, before sitting down on the ground heavily. Haku glanced at Zabuza's hand clutching the place on his flank where the other bounty hunter wounded him. Despite the blonde's claims of healing the two of them, Haku could tell during the battle that the wound was still faintly there, manifesting itself as a small pressure in his chest at first but gradually worsening. Clearly, Zabuza's wound wasn't healed all that well either, and he had to take a short rest or his wound would open again. Haku supposed it was to be expected. Their wounds were rather serious, and the kid was only a genin, but he couldn't shake the feeling it was intentional. If they kept to their part of the bargain, he could heal them properly once the fighting ended. If not, he would get a form of revenge from beyond the grave, or beyond the unconsciousness in this case. How bad is it? Asked Haku quietly. I can deal with it, grunted Zabuza. I need only a minute. Haku wished he could do something for his master, but his medical knowledge was limited. He had no idea what it was that the blonde Konoha genin did to them when he healed them, and without a straightforward wound to treat, and plenty of time to prepare herbal ingredients he couldn't do much even if he did. He really hoped his master was right about his tolerances, because Haku suspected they just burned through any compassion Konoha ninja may have had for them. Haku stared at the sky. Zabuza was skilled in getting out of unfavorable situations like this, through sheer tenacity if nothing else, but Haku couldn't help but think this was the end of the road for them. They were in a desperate position even before this mission, lacking in funds and constantly hunted by the Mist Hunter Nin. Now they lost the Demon Brothers and, if the boy really was important, probably caused Konoha to send hunter ninjas after them as well. Haku didn't regret a thing, of course. Zabuza was his life, and he was honored to have helped the man as his loyal tool. But he couldn't help but feel a little depressed and frustrated at how things were disintegrating all around them. "Alright," said Zabuza suddenly, breaking Haku out of his thoughts. "Let's go." "Go where?" Haku's head snapped in the direction of their blonde prisoner, who was awake and staring at Zabuza with a resentful gaze. "Somewhere where we can have a little chat without people interrupting us," said Zabuza, approaching the bound boy. "You betrayed me," the blonde hissed. "You two really are even less than trash, aren't you?" Zabuza's hand shot forward, clamping on the blonde's neck and lifting him into the air. The blonde gurgled and gasped for air, the only thing keeping him from suffocating being the fact that his weight was mildly supported by the tree Zabuza was pressing him against. "Shut up, brat," barked Zabuza at him. "Coddle babies like you piss me off. People like you don't even have the right to call themselves ninjas. Treachery and deception are essential in our occupation." The blonde gave out a raspy laugh, causing Zabuza and Haku to stare nervously. Zabuza had blasted the kid with the full force of his killing intent, just inches away from his face. No genin should be able to summon that kind of reaction under the effects of such deception, wheezed the blonde. "Hey, want to hear a secret?" Haku's breath quickened. Something was wrong, very, very wrong. "What?" asked Zabuza crankily. "You lost your prize a while ago," said the grinning blonde. Clone explosion. Haku didn't have the time to scream a warning as the boy and Zabuza were enveloped in a deafening explosion. Sasuke crouched on his branch like a coiled spring, motionless but ready to wade in the moment Kakashi gave the signal. His expression was stony and emotionless, but inside he was feeling giddy and maybe a little smug. His blonde teammate had gotten his stupid ass captured, and now it was up to Sasuke and Kakashi to save him. Well, they already did that technically. Kakashi had switched Naruto with one of his transformed shadow clones the moment Zabuza and Haku stopped to rest for a while. What kind of idiots would stop for a rest while fleeing, anyway? Whatever. In any case, Kakashi wanted to teach the missing nin a lesson and Sasuke was all too happy to go along. Those two were strong, and the best way to get stronger was to fight strong opponents. Besides, Kakashi had told him to keep Haku busy while he wrapped things up with Zabuza, and Naruto beat Haku. If Naruto could beat the guy, or girl, or whatever, then Sasuke could too. Sakura didn't participate in this assault, of course. Kakashi had left her to care after Naruto. Officially it was because somebody needed to do that, but Sasuke knew it was just an excuse to keep her out of the way. Sasuke was glad to Kakashi for this, since that meant she wouldn't be holding him back while he fought Haku. An explosion sounded just ahead, and Sasuke was in motion in an instant. It took him all of 2 seconds to reach the fighting grounds. "Zabuza-sama!" Sasuke homed in on Haku, breathing a fireball into the missing nin's path. Haku dodged it. It would be rather disappointing if he didn't, but he was cut off from rushing to Zabuza's aid. Sasuke jumped down in front of the ice user. Haku was clearly very upset, desperately searching for a way to sidestep Sasuke. Quite frankly, it pissed Sasuke off. He would show this girl that he can't be taken lightly. He threw a barrage of shuriken at Haku, which the girl, or was it guy? Honestly, he moved a bit like both. Anyway, Haku dodged them all, almost absent-mindedly. Just as Sasuke thought he had trapped his opponent in the wires attached to the shuriken, the ice user jumped into a mirror of ice, and the wires met only air. Sasuke jumped to the side and breathed a fireball at the place he was occupying only a moment ago. Sure enough, he caught the ice user into the flames when the missing nin tried to stab him in the back. Unfortunately, his flames were hastily made and thus pretty weak, and the boy used his damnable ice powers to protect himself. Haku flipped through the seals and thick mist rose from the ground. Sasuke's heart swelled in joy when he felt his Sharingan copy the technique, but his happiness was dampened immediately afterwards, when he realized he was unlikely to use a technique like that. It didn't mesh with his fighting style. It looked more like something Naruto would use. Oh well, a bartering chip, if nothing else. Sasuke rushed towards Haku, a kunai in his hand. He traded blows with the boy, but Haku didn't seem to need a Sharingan to counter his attacks. He was fast too, negating Sasuke's main advantage in battle. Fortunately for Sasuke, Haku was getting frustrated by the battle far faster than he did. Sasuke intended to simply wait until Haku's impatience to rush to Zabuza's side caused him to make a mistake, but after putting some space between them with a barrage of icy needles, Haku flipped through a moderately long series of hand seals and a dome of ice formed around Sasuke. As a wave after wave of needles sped at him, Sasuke could only marvel at the glory that is Sharingan. He could see them. He could counter them. It seemed the blonde didn't go without a fight after all. You can throw as many of those as you like, Sasuke said, and I'll still remain unscathed. Is this all you can do? Sasuke shuffled in anticipation. Hopefully the boy would show him some more techniques he could copy. Something other than his ice abilities, which Kakashi had told him were a consequence of a bloodline. Frantic chirping sound filled the air, like a flock of birds out of nowhere, and Haku's face, reflected on the surface of every ice mirror around Sasuke, twisted into an expression of horror. Haku tried to run, but Sasuke would not stand for it. As far as he was concerned, Haku just turned his back at him and left himself vulnerable. Before Haku could properly exit the dome of ice and walk into one of his transport mirrors, Sasuke struck one kunai through the ice user's chest and his opponent stumbled and fell to the ground dead. Since his opponent was facing away from him when he killed him, Sasuke didn't even see his expression as he died, probably for the best. A faint sound of an explosion rumbled in the distance, far too far away for it to be connected with Kakashi's fight. Seemed like somebody else was fighting, too. Sasuke stared at Haku's dead body for a few more seconds before walking away in search of Kakashi. I see now, Kakuzu said evenly. And here I thought you died. In a certain sense I died a long time ago, Sasori said. Death isn't as clear-cut a concept as most people think. I'd expected someone like you to know that. Sasori kicked the disabled fire heart that Naruto overloaded with those puppet-destroying tags of his. He supposed he should have come to the same conclusion. Kakuzu's hearts were constructs created from human bodies, capable of using chakra techniques, just like Sasori's human puppets. But he was still surprised to learn that the Kakuzu's hearts were simply elaborate puppets. He'd have to gather up the remains when he dealt with Kakuzu and see what he could learn from them. I never knew we had another puppeteer in Akatsuki, said Sasori. A pity. I would have loved to discuss puppet construction with someone as intelligent and experienced as yourself. Now it's too late. Why did you do it? Asked Kakuzu, his voice more curious than angry. Sasori shrugged. Things happened. I would have preferred to stay clear of the organization, but it seems it's inevitable that we come into conflict with each other. It's nothing personal, you realize, it's just that you're in a wrong place at the wrong time. Kakuzu frowned. I hate to burst your bubble, oh great puppet master, but you're no match for me. You little wooden toys can't last against constructs made out of high-quality wire and bodies of my enemies. Sasori internally debated whether to use the third Kazekage and show Kakuzu just what his wooden toys could do, but decided against it. Everything in its time. And this fight wasn't the time to show his greatest weapon. Perhaps that would be true if you were at the top of your strength, said Sasori, though he personally doubted it, but you no longer have the earth and fire hearts, and you have expended a great deal of your chakra reserves. It will be enough, Kakuzu said. We shall see, Sasori countered, and thus the talk was over. The puppets rushed towards Kakuzu, dancing between the blasts of wind and water that Kakuzu and his wind heart sent their way. The lightning heart was strangely docile, a curiosity that was explained soon enough as the real lightning heart emerged from underground behind Sasori, the soil exploding upward as the heart struggled to position itself for the perfect strike. The fake lightning heart next to Kakuzu melted into water, which immediately formed a dome of water around the man. It wasn't much, but it would interrupt the puppet's attack long enough for the lightning heart to kill Sasori. Or at least, that's what Kakuzu probably though. Electrified threads lashed out against the puppet master, but were stopped immediately as Sasori's blade wings blinked into existence, cutting through the chakra-enhanced wires and impaling the offending heart. The puppets, meanwhile, didn't even bother launching their fast and precise, but weak attacks at the dome of water. Instead they rammed into it, and were stopped. They just didn't have enough momentum to break through. Sasori pulled on the chakra strings, activating the explosive seals riddling the puppet's surface. A deafening explosion erupted around the dome of water, utterly consuming it and sending debris in every direction. Sasori extended his hand and set loose a torrent of water to deflect a particularly large chunk from slamming into him, his feet firmly glued onto the ground with chakra. His little student had some good ideas. While Sasori much preferred the quieter and more selective weapons like poisons, needles, and blades, explosions definitely had their uses. In fact, from a certain viewpoint, an explosion could be thought of as a precision weapon. It was amazing how many problems could be solved with a well-placed explosion, as his lessons with Naruto had shown him. Sasori didn't even wait till the dust cleared completely before charging in. True, this would be the end of most people, but Kakuzu wasn't most people. And sure enough, Kakuzu was clearly still alive, and was just finishing absorbing his last heart when Sasori found him. Kakuzu's head snapped in Sasori's direction, an expression of utter fury etched in his face. He was coughing black blood and one of his arms was missing. "I'll kill you!" he hissed. "I'll stitch up Haiden and hand you over to him, and he'll play around with you for days. I'll have you disemboweled and turned in one of your stupid puppets." "Too late for that, I'm afraid," said Sasori, pointing his outstretched hand towards Kakuzu. Kakuzu's eyes locked on the small opening in the center of Sasori's palm and his face twisted into an expression of shock and understanding. "That's why you look so young?" Kakuzu asked in disbelief. A tight jet of pressurized water slammed into Kakuzu's stomach, scattering his entrails behind him. Sasori motioned his hand upward, destroying the last of Kakuzu's hearts, stopping the flow of water before the jet hit the head. One of his blade wings lashed out in front of him, separating Kakuzu's head from his body. Sasori caught the head before it fell, leaving the body to fall down with a small thud. Head was all he needed, after all. He remained on high alert for the next few minutes, waiting to see if the massive explosion would attract any unwanted attention. It didn't. Sasori went to work, salvaging the remains of Kakuzu's hearts for later study. Soft footsteps soon broke him out of his task. Sasori craned his head to look at Kabuto. "I see you've handled Kakuzu already," Kabuto said with obvious amusement. "Or rather, I heard. I think Naruto is beginning to rub off on you." Sasori resisted the urge to scowl. Kabuto was getting surprisingly casual with him as months went by. Sasori still wasn't sure what to think of that. He supposed he could tolerate the attitude. Kabuto was his most loyal operative now, and Sasori had delegated a fair bit of work to the medic Nin. If he allowed Naruto to behave as he did towards him, but denied the same to Kabuto, the medic Nin could see it as favoritism. "Kakuzu is not someone to take lightly," said Sasori. "I did not want to take any chances." "I suppose that's true," said Kabuto. "Did you retrieve the target?" asked Sasori. Kabuto reached into his backpack and took out Haiden's head, waving it around like a toy. The head was clearly still alive, if the murderous gaze in the wildly darting eyes was any indication, but silent. It was hard to talk when your mouth had been sewn shut, after all. "I see you already took measures to silence him," said Sasori. Kabuto shrugged. His potty mouth was getting rather annoying. "Quite. On the bright side, I managed to salvage a few more of his body parts," said Kabuto cheerfully, holding the head so Haiden's face was facing him. "Just imagine, a man who cannot die. Do you have any idea how amazing that is, Haiden-kun? The sheer medical insight one could gain by studying someone like that is mind-boggling." Kabuto brought the head closer to him, grinning like a maniac. He traced his finger over Haiden's cheek, as if making an incision. "I'd like to see how that works." Sasori almost felt sorry for Haiden. Kabuto could be quite heartless and methodical when he wanted to find out something. That was Sasori's original reason for trying to put Kabuto as a spy among Orochimaru's underlings. No matter what Kabuto said, Sasori knew the medic Nin would fit in like a glove among Orochimaru's inner circle. "By the way, Sasori-sama," said Kabuto, putting the head away back into his backpack. "I understand why we're bringing Haiden's head, but why Kakuzu's as well?" "He's, well, dead." Sasori glanced at the head cradled in his arms. "He should probably put it away somewhere, but sealing biological substances away without damaging them was tricky business, and he didn't have any suitable containers. As I said to Kakuzu before his regrettable end, death is a very fuzzy concept. The human brain retains information for several days after metabolic processes cease. Extracting that information is a time-consuming and delicate process that requires absolute concentration on my part, as well as some high-level seals, but I can do it." "Ah," said Kabuto in understanding. "How interesting." "Indeed," agreed Sasori. "Now let's get back to our base in Konoha. I need a secure place free of interruptions and distractions for this procedure." "What?" asked Kabuto curiously. "You aren't going to say hi to Naruto?" "No," said Sasori. "I need to extract the information before Kakuzu's brain decays, and Naruto will be just fine. I trust Kakashi's competence in this matter." Said Kabuto thoughtfully. "You think he won't tell Naruto about his encounter with you?" "It's not how ninja think," said Kabuto. "He'll tell the Hokage and no one else." "Probably," agreed Kabuto, trudging after his master. Kakashi giggled as he flipped the page of his precious Aika, though in reality his mind and attention was on his students. They were walking home for quite some time now, and they were all deathly silent. No one made attempts to talk, or even complain, not Naruto, not Sakura, and certainly not Sasuke. Naruto's kidnapping by his impromptu allies left him subdued and lethargic, though Kakashi was disappointed that the blonde never made any attempts to discuss the event with him. The only person who cared enough to discuss their problems with Kakashi was Sakura, who he had to assure again that she wasn't useless, and that he was definitely going to help her get better when they reached Konoha. Sasuke, despite the fact that he killed 3 people in his first mission, didn't seem all that affected, but it was hard to tell his real feelings since he was always silent and withdrawn. Kakashi was sure it had left its mark on the boy, but he also knew that try to initiate conversation about it would put Sasuke on the defensive. He saw himself as a perfect ninja, and ninja weren't supposed to feel bad about killing. No matter what Kakashi said, Sasuke would perceive it as a weakness and just push the feeling deeper. Kakashi snapped his book shut and put it in his pocket. He couldn't even pretend to enjoy it anymore. Kami help him. This mission was a total disaster. The Hokage would skin him alive when he found out what Kakashi put his team through without abandoning mission or asking for help. Well, it probably wouldn't be that severe, but he could definitely look forward to a stern talking to and some penance missions to drive the point home. Bad enough, really? 3 rookie genin and their sensei walked in complete silence, all of too tired to talk and caught up in their own introspective moods. Chapter 10, Aftershocks. Being a Hokage was a demanding job. It required personal power, political intuitions, and an ability to deal with formalities of the position. But more than any of those things, it required one to have complete control over their emotions. Not be emotionless, mind you, or even pretend to be such. Rather, a Hokage should always look like they know what they're doing. Nothing is a cause for concern. Nothing is unexpected. A wall of unassailable confidence from which everyone beneath draws strength. The will of fire. That is what Sarutobi Hiruzen was taught, and he strived to embody that ideal to the best of his ability. He had gotten quite good at it over the years, which is why he was able to keep his temper in check as he listened to Kakashi's mission report. "Thank you, Kakashi," said Sarutobi with calmness that surprised even him. "Team 7, you may go home and rest for now, but you may be called in for questioning in the next few days due to the peculiarities of your mission. You will be taken off the active rooster and will not resume missions until 3 weeks have passed. Kakashi, stay behind please." Sarutobi patiently waited till the 3 genin shuffled out of the room before dismissing the ANBU guards and activating the privacy seals. Then he took a deep breath, and gave a squirming Kakashi a hard look before he spoke. "Kakashi," began Hiruzen, "what the hell possessed you to do something this stupid?" Kakashi flinched at his words. It wasn't every day that Hokage used such harsh language when addressing someone, and Sarutobi was generally a polite person. "I admit that my choices were somewhat inadvisable," tried Kakashi. "Somewhat inadvisable?" asked Sarutobi incredulously. "Kakashi, you led 3 rookie genin against Zabuza of the Bloody Mist, and he wasn't even alone or weakened at the time. You should have asked for help immediately." Kakashi frowned a little. "With all respect, Hokage-sama, but I didn't know it was him until it was too late. You told me to put Naruto on the spot and see how he reacts, and I did. And frankly, if it was just Zabuza I had to deal with, the mission would have gone without much trouble. I didn't want to talk about this before you secured the room, but there was a 3rd and 4th party involved into this." Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. Taking that as prompting to keep speaking, Kakashi continued, "I haven't been able to get the details out of Naruto, but at one point he was attacked by a very powerful missing nin and had to enter a temporary truce with Zabuza and his assistant. It was because Zabuza betrayed this alliance at the most inopportune of times that he managed to kidnap Naruto so easily." "How powerful are we talking about here?" asked Sarutobi curiously. "More powerful than me," said Kakashi after a short pause. "To be frank, I don't think I would have been able to defeat him. Not quickly enough to save Naruto, at any case." That's when the 4th party got involved. "Well, go on," Sarutobi urged. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head nervously, reminding Sarutobi of Naruto when he did something he shouldn't have. "It's funny," said Kakashi. "I don't remember much of anything about him, well, except that he was a he, and a bit short." Sarutobi pinched his nose in frustration. "Kakashi, this is no time for jokes." "It's no joke, Hokage-sama," protested Kakashi. "Somehow the ninja messed with my mind and I didn't even notice it until hours afterwards. I'm quite upset about it." "He put you in a genjutsu?" asked Sarutobi curiously. "Must have been quite a genjutsu master. The Sharingan is supposed to defeat all genjutsu." "Well," said Kakashi. "Technically. But those who know how the Sharingan works can learn to trick it with enough practice. But it's a bit irrelevant, since he initially approached me from behind. My Sharingan wasn't even looking at him, so I suppose he had plenty of opportunity to place a genjutsu on me without me noticing. Sarutobi exhaled heavily and closed his eyes. A missing mean powerful enough that even Kakashi didn't know whether he could defeat him or not? An unknown ninja that could sneak up on Kakashi and put him into a genjutsu without him ever realizing it until hours afterwards. It sounded rather far-fetched, but Kakashi wasn't the sort to make things up to make his defeat less embarrassing. I want you to write 2 reports for me, said Sarutobi. The official one, in which you will edit out these things you just told me, and the one for my eyes only where you will write down every single detail that you remember. Yes, Hokage-sama. Dismissed. Sarutobi leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft click as Kakashi slipped out of the room. You knew things were bad when Kakashi didn't even complain about having to write 2 separate reports for a single mission. Pain stood before the bridge builder's home. Well, human realm did. The other realms were spread around in the land of the waves. It was hard to believe that a building like this and its inhabitants were in any way related to Kakuzu's death, but the information he forced out of the natives was consistent no matter who he asked. Go ask Tazuna. And so he was here. Words could not express how angry Pain was about Kakuzu's death. Haiden was merely cannon fodder, easily replaceable, but Kakuzu was the one responsible for roughly half of Akatsuki's income and served as the spy master of the organization after Sasori's death. This was a major setback, although he did prepare a backup spy network after Sasori's death. In case something like this happened, it was far inferior to what the remnants of Sasori's network provided under Kakuzu's care. It was obvious, then, that he should personally investigate the cause of Kakuzu's death. This was too important to be delegated to someone else. Unfortunately, this area had been combed through quite thoroughly by the time he arrived, leaving him with the laborious task of reconstructing the events from only the faintest of clues. As far as he could piece together, the local bridge builder hired a team of ninja from Konoha to guard him from Gato's mercenaries. Then there was chaos. Since the Konoha ninja were the only ones left alive at the end, it only made sense that they were the ones to kill Kakuzu. Which was worrying. Konoha shouldn't have anyone capable of killing someone like him, certainly not with what appeared to be a standard Konoha genin team. He stepped in front of the door and knocked. "Just 1 minute," sounded a female voice from inside, getting closer towards the door. "What can I do?" The young woman that opened the door, probably Tazuna's daughter Tsunami, took one look at his human realm and her eyes instantly widened in horror. But she was just a civilian, and too slow. Before she could do anything, Human Realm pressed his palm against her face in a blindingly fast maneuver. Her eyes rolled back in her head as Pain forced himself into her mind and began sifting through her memories. A genin team, yes. Hatake Kakashi? Doubtful. The greedy immortal was quite capable and experienced, and had defeated stronger opponents with little trouble. The Uchiha was too young. Not even Itachi could survive a conflict with Kakuzu at that age. The pink-haired one was talkative, and Pain focused on Tsunami's memories of her talks with the girl. Interesting. She probably didn't even realize how much she revealed during those talks. So the blonde genin is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. That was worryingly likely. If the blonde Jinchuriki could tap into his beast, he could probably take Kakuzu by surprise and kill him before he has time to flee or devise a strategy. Apparently he couldn't afford to wait any longer, despite his plan not being ready. He had to take care of the container soon, before he could grow even stronger than he is right now. He released the girl from his technique, and she fell lifelessly to the ground, her brain liquefied. It was just as well, because no one was going to be left alive here. His investigation wasn't exactly subtle, and the risk of someone finding out about Akatsuki this soon was too great. "What did you do to my mom?" screamed a little boy. The woman's son, according to her memories. Human Realm threw a kunai absent-mindedly at the child, piecing his eye and killing him on the spot. Tazuna himself seemed to be sleeping upstairs, drunk of his mind. Pain debated internally whether to read his mind too, but decided that the old drunk knew nothing of further value. Human Realm scattered a stack of explosive notes around the house and left. In the center of the largest settlement, a party was going on, people celebrating their new freedom from Gato and his thugs. Smack in the middle of the celebration, Demon Realm split open to reveal an arsenal of advanced weaponry, which he fired into the crowd. Happy cheers turned into screams of terror as the weapons impacted all around them, toppling buildings and killing hundreds. On the outskirts of the settlement, other realms patiently waited, picking off anyone that escaped the carnage. It only took 10 minutes for the entire settlement to fall deathly silent and devoid of life. Further away from the carnage, God Realm stared at the bridge that the islanders worked so hard on, pouring their dreams and hopes into it. He stretched his hand towards it, and the huge construction snapped in half before sinking into the sea. When a squad of ANBU from Konoha arrived to search the battle sites for clues, they would find only a broken land devoid of human life, populated only by ruins and corpses. Land of Waves was no more. Sarutobi took a good, long puff from his pipe to calm his nerves. He was rereading Kakashi's written report for the third time today, hoping beyond hope that there was something in it that he had missed the first 2 times. What happened in the Land of the Waves was of great importance. The destruction of the Land of the Waves right after Kakashi's team left was proof of that. Unfortunately, no new insights were hidden there. Sarutobi threw the stack of papers on his desk and rubbed his eyes in frustration. He was too old for this. A knock on the door brought him out of his thoughts. "Come in." Midarashi, Anko, and Yuhi Kurenai entered the room, and Sarutobi straightened himself and schooled his features. "Midarashi-san, Kurenai-san," he greeted. "You called for our presence, Hokage-sama?" asked Kurenai. Anko remained silent, never having been particularly adept at formalities. Sarutobi didn't particularly mind, so he got straight to the point. "I did," confirmed Sarutobi. "I have a mission for you too, one related to Uzumaki Naruto. I assume you have heard about Team 7's ill-fated mission to the wave?" They nodded. Of course they did. It may have only been 3 days, but the gossip spread fast. It was not often a simple C-rank escort mission turned into such a disaster, and it was even rarer for a genin team to get out of it alive. Considering what happened to the Land of the Waves afterwards, well, people took notice of such things. "I don't know what rumors you might have heard," said Sarutobi, handing both of them a copy of Kakashi's report, "but there are certain aspects of that mission that are being kept secret. This report contains only a partial account of the events that transpired on that mission, but please take a look at it before we begin." Sarutobi waited patiently as Kurenai and Anko skimmed through the report for the next few minutes. Though fairly long, a large part of the text consisted of Kakashi's attempts to justify his less than intuitive decisions. He was confident they'd catch the important details quickly enough. Anko finished first, likely by reading through the report less thoroughly, and threw the stack of papers on the desk where they scattered haphazardly. Sarutobi quickly but calmly stopped the papers from flying completely apart, as that would just create more work for him when these two leave. "So the brats had an eventful first mission," said Anko. "Everyone survived, so what's the issue?" "Several things," said Sarutobi, confident that though Kurenai was still reading the report she would pay attention to his words. "You may have noticed that the description of Kakashi's unknown heir savior are a bit sketchy." "Yeah, actually I did," said Anko. "You think Kakashi's keeping something secret?" Sarutobi shook his head. The unknown ninja showed himself freely. However, when Kakashi later tried to recall the ninja's appearance, he found that he couldn't. All he could think of was that the ninja was perfectly ordinary, average height, average face, average everything. After a great deal of effort, he remembered that the ninja was a puppeteer, but that's as detailed as he could manage. Kurenai perked up for this. "I know that technique," she said. "It's a delayed effect genjutsu, typically used to maintain secrecy during information-gathering missions. It's difficult to counter because few people are even aware they're caught in a genjutsu at first, as there is no immediate effect." "Interesting," said Sarutobi. "Is there a way to counter the effect?" Kurenai shook her head. "The only counter is dispelling the genjutsu before it activates. Maybe you should try with the Yamanaka? Don't they specialize in retrieving information from people's minds?" Sarutobi sighed and waved that idea away. He had indeed thought of that, and quickly dismissed it as a bad idea. Having Inoichi trudge through Kakashi's mind in the hope he could somehow unlock the garbled memories of the man would piss Kakashi off something fierce. Kakashi was an intensely private person, and he would never forgive Sarutobi if he was subjected to something like that. As much as Sarutobi felt Kakashi could have handled the mission better, he wasn't willing to declare full-out war like that. "What did the ANBU cleanup squad find?" asked Anko. "Ruins," said Sarutobi with a serious face. "It's just as bad as you heard. There were no survivors anywhere. I ordered a detailed examination of the remnants, but considering the sheer scale of disturbance, I doubt we'll get any useful results from it." "Why don't you ask Naruto?" asked Kurenai suddenly. "He's obviously connected to this somehow." "I did ask him," said Sarutobi carefully. "He said he was attacked by 2 missing nin, not 1. Apparently there is an organization called Akatsuki, whose members wear black cloaks decorated with red clouds, always travel in pairs, and hunt after the Jinchuriki so they can extract the tailed beasts for their own purposes." "And he knows this how?" asked Kurenai with a frown. "He was told this by his sources," said Sarutobi in a serious voice. "His sources?" asked Kurenai incredulously. You don't often meet 12-year-olds who have sources. Indeed, agreed Sarutobi. That's why I had Ibiki interrogate him. Nothing violent, just some psychological pressure, and, well, we found out that psychological pressure doesn't work on him. He completely shrugged it off, almost like he was used to it. Ibiki couldn't make up his mind in the end. On one hand, Naruto seemed to honestly believe what he was telling, but on the other hand, Ibiki found it strange how quickly the boy's mood shifted. He thinks Naruto has a multiple personality disorder and can switch back and forth between several personalities, with at least one personality lacking access to critical memories, allowing Naruto to be both honest and keep silent about things he doesn't want people to know. That sounds paranoid, even for Ibiki, said Anko. And everything I know about multiple personalities tells me they're more of a crippling weakness than a boon like that. Right. I didn't intend to accuse Naruto on such a shaky theory anyway, said Sarutobi. What about the Uzumaki report? It's become quite a famous document in the torture and interrogation headquarters, you know? Did anyone actually read that thing to the end? Kurenai looked at Anko and Sarutobi questioningly, but Sarutobi waved it off. It's just a report that Ibiki asked Naruto to write at the end of their session. I'm sure Anko can fill you in on it after we're done here. Besides, not even the aging Hokage knew just what to make of that report. Make it detailed, Ibiki said. Don't leave anything out, Ibiki said. And indeed, Naruto put everything there. The damn thing was 83 pages long, with densely packed writing and several illustrations, and included such gems like a florid 5-page description of a particular tree that caught Naruto's attention, a meandering essay on the transitory nature of life, and a short poem about mist. Apparently unable to think of something to write in the remaining 27 pages, and unwilling to let them go to waste, he folded them into a variety of origami animals as a present to Ibiki, for being such a swell guy. As of right now, nobody had managed to read the entirety of the report without dozing off in the process. How Naruto managed to make that report in only 6 hours was truly a mystery for the ages. There is definitely something strange happening around Naruto, said Sarutobi. And I believe there is a much better way to find out what, far better than having the ANBU tailing him, something that only encourages him to treat us as his enemies and has shown itself to be rather ineffective against him anyway. Us? Tried Anko. Sarutobi nodded. Let me get one thing out of the way. I am not trying to catch Naruto red-handed so I can lock him away and throw away the key. What I am doing is in the boy's best interest. He's clearly tangling with forces he does not understand, but forces he cares enough about to shield them from our scrutiny. What I need is someone friendly with the boy, but mature enough to help me get him out whatever he's mired himself into. I'm not sure I'm the right choice, Hokage-sama, said Anko. This sounds like something that requires tact and patience, which aren't my strong points, to be honest. Kurenai would probably be better off doing this alone. I disagree, said Sarutobi. The boy trusts you much more than he does Kurenai, probably precisely because of that forward attitude of yours. And sometimes a lack of tact and patience is an advantage, not a flaw, especially if one has a reputation for being direct, so it doesn't seem out of character. I'd like results as soon as possible, before Naruto's loyalties shift completely away from Konoha. I can't afford to escalate this right now because we're about to host Chunin exams in Konoha soon, but if you don't find out anything significant by the end of the Chunin exams, I'm afraid I'll have to use more unpleasant methods. A brief silence descended on the scene as all three thought about the fallout of such actions. You're dismissed, said Sarutobi suddenly. For everyone's sake, I hope you don't fail. Naruto knew he was under close scrutiny. He didn't appear to have ANBU shadowing his every step. It was obvious, however, that a lot of eyes were drawn to him wherever he went, waiting for him to make a misstep somewhere so they could pounce. The fact that Sasori and Kabuto were suspiciously absent from their usual haunts when he subtly scouted them out only drove the point home. Even they could see where the wind was blowing right now. That ill-fated mission to the wave had caused people to take notice of things about Naruto they once dismissed simply as lucky streaks and consequences of fortunate circumstances. And it would take a while before they find something else to obsess about. Taking a few moments to catch his breath, Naruto continued his morning routine of physical exercises. Old Man had placed entire Team 7 on a forced vacation, but Naruto was never into slacking off. Besides, his morning exercises were a wonderful way to chase off drowsiness and bleed off some of that pent-up frustration that was seething in his ever since he returned to Konoha. He understood that it was perfectly normal for ninja to betray their allies when it suited them. He understood that he would be forced to do things he didn't agree with for the village and his employers at some point in his career. He understood that it was not only acceptable but expected from a Hokage to send a suspiciously competent and knowledgeable genin to a borderline psycho interrogator to see what was behind it all. He understood that it was perfectly logical for the villagers to be suspicious towards a kid holding the most powerful of bijou in his belly. He understood all of it. But that didn't mean he liked it. It occurred to him that he was rapidly hurtling towards a conflict with the old man and the village, and the realization filled him with a feeling of dread and free-floating resentment. For the first time in his life, Naruto wondered about his self-set goal of becoming Hokage, or about his future in the village for that matter. "You seem troubled." Naruto twitched in surprise and his head snapped towards the sound, his whole body twisting itself into a combat-ready position. But it was just Shino up in the branches, sitting there like he hadn't just sneak up on him. Naruto frowned. If Shino could sneak up on him, then surely A and BU could too. Maybe the fact that he couldn't notice them only meant they factored his hearing into their efforts now. He'd have to think about that for a while. "I'm sure you already heard about my first mission outside the village," Naruto said. "Everyone is talking about it anyway. It's always preferable to gather information from sources that were present when the events in question took place," Shino said calmly. Naruto chuckled and waved his hand dismissively, gesturing that he wasn't in the mood for verbal sparring. If Shino wanted to hear his side of the story, then Naruto would oblige him. So Naruto talked. More accurately, he rambled, drifting from one topic to another, too tired to structure his thoughts properly. He abused his focus seal so much during his interrogation with Ibiki that his thoughts were still a little scrambled 2 days later. But if Shino was bothered, he didn't show it, opting instead to listen patiently. Naruto was grateful that Shino didn't attempt to shoot holes through his half-truths and evasions, because quite frankly, he was sick of people doing that lately. "So there I was," said Naruto, alone with nothing to do, looking at some spider crawl along the rocks. It was huge. And I thought, why don't I try and see if I can place a seal on an insect? "Spiders aren't insects," Shino said sternly. "Fine, arachnid." "Anyway, I caught the arachnid. I caught the arachnid and tried to put an integrity seal on it to, make it stronger or something. But it died. And so I was thinking how much it sucks that the arachnid died, and I was feeling a bit guilty about killing it, but then I thought, why should the fact that it's dead stop me? So I dusted off that book you gave me, the one about insects and other arthropods, and read up on arachnid physiology. Anyway, I used medical chakra to rearrange its insides a bit, removed a few organs it wasn't going to be needing anymore, placed a few more integrity seals to keep it from falling apart, a control seal here and there, and bam, I got it walking again. It didn't do anything unless I imprinted an order in it, and it fell apart after a few minutes and I couldn't put it back afterwards. But I think this experiment proves that there is potential in the idea." "You animated a dead spider?" asked Shino, a barest hint of disbelief in his voice. "It was a zombie spider," said Naruto enthusiastically. "How cool is that?" "Cool is not precisely how I would describe it," said Shino. "Naruto, are you certain you are feeling well? You seem a bit off today." I'm fine, said Naruto dismissively. He decided not to tell Shino that the zombie spider was just the beginning of his experiment. After the somewhat disappointing results with the spider, he went through hundreds of other insects, and then moved on to small animals. He must have killed at least 50 squirrels and half as many birds yesterday. Of course, killing insects and small animals wasn't the only thing he was doing with his time. While recreating Naga was not possible at the moment because he lacked certain parts that only Sasori could procure, he was already working on new puppets with the materials he did have. He definitely wasn't going to depend on a single puppet anymore, that's for sure. When Kakuzu destroyed Naga, he was pretty much rendered completely ineffective. Unfortunately, his building materials were rather limited at the moment, which led him to experiment with more exotic materials. Living beings were one thing, but he also tried animating origami constructs, crude sculptures made out of wire or cloth, and even a small puppet made entirely out of warped, interlocking spoons and forks. Maybe Shino was right, his ideas were a bit crazy lately, even for him. He really shouldn't abuse the focus seal like that anymore. "There you are, Naruto-chan," Anko's voice yelled over the clearing. "I've been looking everywhere for you," Naruto groaned. He did not want to deal with Anko right now. "If you want to interrogate me, you can forget it," said Naruto crankily. "I am sick of telling this story over and over again." "What are you talking about?" said Anko cheerfully. "I'm here to taking you bathing with me." "Huh, you and me, together in that new bathhouse that opened up last week," said Anko. "There is nothing like a nice, warm bath with a well-endowed woman to calm a guy's nerves after his first botched mission." Don't even joke about that, Anko, growled Naruto. Who's joking? Asked Anko. You're going with me to the bathhouse and that's that. Like hell I am, but Kurenai isn't here and I want to go to the bathhouse. Whined Anko. Go alone, said Naruto. Naruto-chan is so mean, protested Anko, materializing behind Naruto in the blink of an eye and pressing herself against Naruto's back. You know what I think? I think you're just afraid you'll get hard at seeing your dear Aunt Anko naked. Yeah, right, said Naruto, red as a lobster and desperately avoiding Anko, who was trying to get him to look at her breasts. This is sexual harassment, you know? I could have you reported for this. Shino is my witness. Aren't you Shino? Shino was gone, his branch empty. Curse that traitor, PFFF, said Anko, grabbing Naruto's arm and dragging him with her. Anko, stop dragging me. I said I won't. I mean, seriously, it's not like we can even bathe together even if you want to. I'm sure it's against the rules or something. Nope, said Anko happily. They have private baths for couples. Couples! Despite Naruto's attempts, Anko would not be denied her bath with him, and Naruto eventually decided it was safer to indulge her. It wasn't like she was really going to try something, right? Right. At least they were going to be in a public bathhouse so his screams for help wouldn't be ignored. It wasn't as bad as Naruto feared. They both had towels and Anko became eerily calm and serene once she hit the water. Occasionally they engaged in meaningless banter, but mostly they just relaxed. Well, as much as Naruto could relax when being in a bath with Anko. Anko, said Naruto suddenly. What's that thing on your neck? Anko flinched as thought she'd been struck and covered the black mark with her hand. It's nothing. It's a seal, right? Said Naruto. What does it do? It eats curious blondes, she said. Can't you take a hint? Back off. Oh, come on, said Naruto, his interest piqued. I have an interest in seals, you know? Can't you let me have a look at it? Anko grinned. Why, Naruto-chan, are you trying to get an excuse to feel me up? You don't need an excuse for that, you know. I'll be happy to. Nope, not gonna work, said Naruto. Look, it will only take a minute. She sighed and motioned him to come closer. Approaching Anko like this was probably rather foolish, but Naruto's curiosity was stronger than his sense of self-preservation when it came to seals. He moved to Anko's side and studied the seal. It was hard to discern the function of the seal once it had been compressed, especially a seal as complex as this. But it was clear to Naruto that this wasn't one seal but two, the central seal and the blocking overlay similar to the one that prevented Kyuubi's chakra to seep into his chakra coils. There was no way Anko could be a container of a demon, was there? No, of course not, but the seal in the center was clearly malicious. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Hey brat, how long is this going to take? Asked Anko crankily. Give me a little bit more, said Naruto, placing his hand over the seal and directing medical chakra into the flesh around it. He then performed the diagnosis technique and scanned Anko's chakra coils. It was a little trick he developed jointly with Hinata, though it was a lot more useful to her than to a Byakugan-less ninja like Naruto. Concentrating intensely, he could see that the seal reached far into Anko's chakra system, entangled to the point where it was essentially impossible to remove. It had both a sealing component and a biological one, so the containment overlay was essentially ineffective. Anko, said Naruto, removing his hand, to Anko's visible relief. You realize the blocking mechanism for the seal isn't really working, don't you? Her eyes widened. What? Yeah. Whoever contained the seal assumed it was just that, a seal. It's actually a lot more. That thing basically let roots throughout your entire chakra system. The overlay won't do anything if the seal activates for whatever reason. Anko seemed mortified by that information. The good thing is that I think I can make you one that works, said Naruto happily. You can? Asked Anko incredulously. But how do you? I'm both a medic nin and proficient in sealing, said Naruto. That makes me one of the few people who can actually design a counter for this kind of thing. It would be a lot easier if I knew just what the seal does, however. Anko was silent for a full minute, staring blankly into water. Alright, she said finally. Tell me, what do you know about Orochimaru? You wanted to see me, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked carefully, before her expression turned hopeful. Did you think of something to give me an edge? Actually, yes, said Kakashi. Really? What is it? Ninjutsu. Nin, but Kakashi-sensei, I'm not exactly perfect for ninjutsu? Asked Kakashi. Very few people are. While large chakra reserves are the hallmark of a ninjutsu specialist, excellent chakra control certainly doesn't hurt. Most people have either as genin, so you're already one step ahead of them. Kakashi smiled at his female student. He had been racking his brains for several days now, thinking what to do with her, when this appealingly simple idea occurred to him. She was built more for a genjutsu specialist or a medic nin, but so what? He certainly couldn't help her advance in those areas, and he doubted she wanted to leave Team 7 for a career in either. Besides, he knew plenty of techniques that would make good use of her level of chakra control. The good thing was that he managed to convince the Hokage that his team needs to have more in the way of combat abilities. To that end, Kakashi was authorized to teach them a dozen or so low-level techniques and 1 or 2 high-level ones. He had yet to decide which ones to teach them. They had to be fairly versatile since he suspected they'll be limited to them for a while. But he had time till the end of Team 7's assisted vacation, so it wasn't a pressing concern. Kakashi casually picked up a shard sword hanging on his back and hurled it in front of Sakura, who yelped in surprise and jumped back. The sword embedded itself into the soft earth, doing nothing of note. "A sword?" Sakura asked. "You're going to teach me sword fighting?" "Not quite," said Kakashi. "You see, although it doesn't look like much, that sword is special. It's my old training sword." "Training sword?" "That's right. The sword soaks up chakra like a sponge and uses it to try to damage the wielder. It takes quite a bit of chakra control to keep it from hurting you while sparring with someone, and quite large chakra reserves to keep fighting for more than a minute." Sakura eyes the sword with dread and suspicion. "Hurt the user? How badly?" "Oh, only a prickle or two, nothing more," said Kakashi with a suspiciously cheerful voice, waving his hand dismissively. "A moderate burn if you screw up too badly. But I'm sure someone with such excellent chakra control will have no trouble keeping the sword under control." Sakura took a deep breath and stepped towards the sword. "Oh, I forgot to mention, maybe it's a good idea," Kakashi began, only to stop as Sakura's hand wrapped around the sword's hilt. The moment her fingers closed around the hilt of the sword, Sakura immediately let go of it and stumbled back drunkenly. She flailed around for a moment before her hands grasped her head and she fell on her knees, shivering. "To start by touching the sword with only a finger," finished Kakashi. "The chakra drain can pack quite a punch if you're not prepared for it." Sakura raised her head just enough to glare venomously at him. "Thanks," she hissed. "Good timing with your warning, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi simply smiled in response. "Anyway," he said, clearing his throat, "I said I won't quite be teaching you sword fighting, but there is no use in clanking swords like idiots during our spars, no? The whole point of fighting with it is to practice chakra control while your mind is otherwise occupied, so that drawing and molding it will come to you instinctively. That's why you'll be using actual stances and moves during our spars, even if I don't really expect you to be able to effectively fight with a sword at the end of it. But hey, if you have some talent in it, and are willing to spend a year or two under my tutelage, I can build up on those basics into something usable." I'd like that," she said carefully, pressing her finger against the hilt of the sword and quickly withdrawing it. She stared at her finger and frowned. "Don't worry," said Kakashi. "In a month or two you'll be able to hold it in both hands and still last whole minutes with it." Sakura pressed her finger against the sword again and maintained contact for several seconds before relenting. "I've got something else for you," Kakashi said, throwing a large rectangular packet at her. To his delight, she stood her ground and caught the packet in her hands instead of dodging in fear. She was too fearful toward anything even remotely threatening, and it wasn't a good attitude for a ninja. Sakura tore open the side of the box and peered inside. "Books?" she asked incredulously. "Yes," confirmed Kakashi. "Books about chakra theory, elemental manipulation, hand seals, chakra circulatory system, you name it. Technically, most of that information is freely available in the public library, but good luck finding the true gems among all the crap they hold there. That, my dear student, is my personal collection. I even took the trouble to write in a few remarks and underline the parts one considered particularly useful." Sakura stared at the packet with unhidden glee. Kakashi didn't have to wonder why. Pretty much everyone and their mother had told him that Sakura was very academically minded and thrived on things like this. That was why he was giving it to her. That stuff was considered pretty advanced. But hell if it wasn't useful. Whether you were interested in creating your own technique or figuring out why you weren't going anywhere with an existing one, this collection was your best friend. If only one could summon the willpower to read through it, that is. "Now go home and rest a bit," said Kakashi. "When you're feeling better, start messing with the sword again and see how far you can go by the time we start taking missions again." His part done, Kakashi turned to leave. "Wait!" Sakura called out. "How am I going to get the sword home if it drains me dry every time I touch it?" Kakashi smiled at her. "You're a smart girl. You'll figure it out." And then he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. "So," Anko said with a grin, "based on the expression on your face, I'm guessing that following the brat around didn't work out for you." Kurenai shot her a glare as she slumped into the chair in front of her. After looking around to make sure no one was eavesdropping, they were in a public bar, after all. She leaned forward towards Anko. How does he do that? Kurenai asked with annoyance. Do what? Asked Anko innocently. Shrug off every genjutsu I put on him like it's a nuisance at best. I tried every trick I know, which is a lot, let me tell you, and he knows immediately that he's under a genjutsu anyway, and then breaks it like it was nothing. It doesn't matter how sensitive his hearing is. Just because you know you're caught in a genjutsu doesn't mean you can break out of it. One of the illusions I put on him was a veritable labyrinth with 15 different layers and an ability to regenerate itself unless removed in a very particular way. And he broke free of it like he was walking through cobwebs or something. Kurenai leaned back, trying to calm herself down. She knew that being specialized to the extent that she was left one severely disadvantaged against certain opponents, but this was ridiculous. She had illusions that could ensnare even a Hyuga, yet she couldn't deal with a rookie genin? It was infuriating. What did you find out anyway? Asked Kurenai. Anko's expression soured quickly. The brat knows far more about sealing than is healthy. His apartment is riddled with those blasted things, so I couldn't really snoop around much. I probably wouldn't find out much from that place anyway, though. He keeps everything important to him in blood seal protected storage scrolls that he carries with him at all times. Paranoid. Apparently the Hokage made a habit of using these kinds of methods of keeping tabs on the kid, and now the brat is extremely familiar with them, said Anko. They both fell silent as a waitress came to take their orders. Kurenai used the brief reprieve to mull the mystery that was Naruto in her head. The boy was obviously hiding something. Something big. The problem was, he was not an enemy, and thus had to be handled with care. We need a way to get the answer from him face to face, said Kurenai after the waitress disappeared. We're not going to find out enough from indirect methods before the deadline. Anko's face grew serious, and Kurenai felt bad for her friend. She personally thought Naruto was not a traitor and liked the kid, but she knew her feelings were only a fraction of Anko's. She had grown attached to the blonde genin, and they both knew that a formal investigation would result in pretty harsh penalties for the blonde. Even if whatever he was hiding was not dangerous, the mere fact that he was keeping it secret could be construed as treason. What about those brats you're leading? Asked Anko. I thought they're good friends with Naruto. Too good, said Kurenai. They're censoring themselves when they report to me about him, no matter how much I repeat that I only want to help him. Anko groaned. What then? Should I just strap him to a chair and— No, said Kurenai forcefully. That will put him on guard. Here's a better idea. We get into his good graces and ask politely. Lame, said Anko. And I don't think it will work anyway. He's a pretty good judge of character, you know? That's the beauty of it, though. We don't have to use any deception. You keep hanging out with him and amusing him with your crazy antics, and I'll organize combined exercises with Kakashi's team, and invite him to train with my team more often. Anko frowned before nodding her head in agreement. All right. It's not like I've got a better idea. But if we don't have anything substantial week before the deadline, we're going with my idea, okay? Kurenai nodded. The waitress returned with the drinks, and she decided to shelve the discussion for the time being and drink her frustrations away. Hesitantly, the puppet took a step forward. As if reassured by that small success, the puppet whirred to life, executing a complicated series of moves and contortions before finally relaxing. Calmly and confidently, it raised its hands, releasing a burst of fire out of them. Sasori nodded approvingly. Not bad for a prototype. After sifting through Kakuzu's memories and examining the remains of his hearts, Sasori was pretty sure he could replicate the feat, but where would be the art in that? He would create something new instead, integrating this idea into the second generation of his human puppets. Puppets with a degree of self-deliberation, able to use elemental techniques, the ability to survive the destruction of his heart box. Those things would be quite a boon to his art. Of course, the rest of knowledge he gained from Kakuzu was almost as interesting. It seemed that Akatsuki really did think he was dead for good, and it would appear they never really put his information network back together after he left. And Kakuzu should now, since he was the one that took over Sasori's job. Sasori now finally had detailed knowledge of which parts of his information network Akatsuki knew about. This should make things a lot easier. It also appeared that Akatsuki tracked Orochimaru's activities very closely. They had organized several raids on his facilities and had a massive amount of information on his subordinates and capabilities, information that was very useful to him. Overall, this operation was a fantastic success. Leader, though, well, the man had already made his displeasure known by leveling the land of waves to the ground. Hopefully Sasori would not be implicated in any of this, He had seen the results of Leader's wrath, and he knew he could not defy that man's power. Someone knocked on the door and Sasori stiffened as he listened to the pattern of knocks to determine the identity of the visitor. But it was only Kabuto. Wordlessly, Sasori unlocked the door and stepped out of the room, pushing past Kabuto, who quickly got out of the way. He wasn't going to let anyone into his sanctuary if he could help it. "What is it?" "I have found out something very interesting about Naruto," said Kabuto. "Go on," urged Sasori impatiently. He yearned to go back to his experiments. He was on the verge of a breakthrough, he was sure of it. "Naruto has found a way to block Orochimaru's curse seal." Sasori was honestly surprised. "He succeeded where you've failed for nearly a year now." "Well," tried Kabuto. "He has expertise in both medical techniques and sealing. He's uniquely suited for that particular task." "Humph. And I suppose you want him to help you figure it out?" asked Sasori rhetorically. "Well, that's okay. It is about time for you to get his medic training on the next level. But it will be very difficult to work with him without revealing ourselves." "Well then," said Sasori after a short pause, "it seems it's time for Naruto's teacher to be unmasked." "You will reveal yourself?" Kabuto sounded shocked. "Of course not. He is at the phase where he needs to experiment with his art and see where his preferences lie, and my presence would only hinder that. Besides, there is only so much I can do to protect my secrets if I'm ever subject to Konoha's full scrutiny. My unconventional nature is easily detectable to certain sort ninja." Kabuto was confused. "Then what? He has more than one teacher, doesn't he?" tried Sasori again. "Me?" tried Kabuto. "Who else? Throwing away your most loyal follower like that," said Kabuto with mock hurt in his voice. "You're so cruel, Sasori-sama." "Stop that," said Sasori in annoyance. "Nothing will happen to you unless you've forgotten all of my lessons about being a spy. Besides, I'm not telling you to volunteer anything sensitive. Just be a lightning rod for any scrutiny the kid might face." You realize what this means, don't you?" asked Kabuto, suddenly serious. "I won't be able to contact you all that often with everyone's attention on me like that." "It's fine," Sasori waved his hand dismissively. "I will be otherwise preoccupied for a while, anyway. Here." Sasori handed Kabuto a stack of notebooks. "The red ones are my notes on Kakuzu's memories, both his information on Orochimaru and the locations of my old sources that Akatsuki never found out about. The brown ones contain additional notes, for Naruto. I trust you can operate alone for a month or two?" Kabuto smiled sweetly. "Of course, Sasori-sama." Sasori resisted the urge to roll his eyes in his sockets and went back to his room. "Jirobo is dead." Orochimaru gritted his teeth, struggling to keep his temper in check. He had too few followers now to simply kill them because he was in a bad mood. He especially had too few followers of Kadamura's level of skill. "What happened?" asked Orochimaru evenly, though he suspected he knew exactly what transpired. The multi-armed kid shuffled in place nervously, as if waiting for a few seconds would improve Orochimaru's mood. Just as Orochimaru was about to prompt a response in a semi-violent manner, the girl beside him answered in his place. "The ring-eyed freaks just barged into the base and started slaughtering everyone," said Tayuya. "Base 21 is no more, just like the previous two bases. The two of us are the only survivors." Orochimaru leaned back in his throne and stared at the ceiling, silently fuming. This was all so ridiculous. It wasn't his fault that Akatsuki never pieced together Sasori's spy network after he died in that battle, so it was really quite unseemly that they were still hounding him over that silly little thing. Then again, it was all very manageable so far. Akatsuki would destroy a minor facility of his, he would lay low for a while, and then the game would repeat itself. He and Kakuzu played a game of sort, neither willing to sacrifice much to hurt the other, battling primarily through subtle sabotage and spy conflicts. He was a bit pissed when Akatsuki took Yugo away from him and converted him on their side. How they managed to reel in his violent urges he would never know, but ultimately, he had already obtained what he needed from that mood-swinging maniac. Now that Kakuzu had died, Leader apparently decided to take a more aggressive stance in order to cripple him as much as possible before his information on Orochimaru's bases and personnel became outdated. Leader, he was such a mystery, even for Orochimaru. What was the nature of his powers? How did those ring-eyed soldiers get back from the dead each time he killed one? The ring-eyed monstrosities knew no fear and had an uncanny ability to detect traps and troop movements. They killed without mercy, not sparing anyone, not his ninja, not the non-combat personnel, and, unless they were useful to Akatsuki, not even the test subjects. He needed the Sharingan. Everything would be alright, If he could only acquire those amazing eyes that could see through every illusion and made the mechanics of all techniques plain to see. There was just one problem. Kimimaro. Kidamaru. Tayuya, said Orochimaru. There is a change of plan regarding the upcoming invasion of Konoha. You won't be accompanying me when I confront the Hokage. You are needed elsewhere. Orochimaru-sama? Asked Kimimaro with concern. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki has become quite a problem. If he could kill Kakuzu, he will be quite a nuisance to deal with during the invasion. And besides, putting the curse seal on Sasuke-kun might become a troublesome preposition if he releases his beast. He will die at your command, said Kimimaro with confidence. Orochimaru smiled. It truly was a pity that he could not take the boy as his next host, but such was life. At least he was dedicated to making himself useful in his final days. How the hell do we kill the container of the strongest of the tailed beasts smack in the middle of the ninja village during full alert for suspicious activity? Asked Tayuya incredulously before shirking away from Kimimaro's murderous gaze. Orochimaru checked. Be nice, Kimimaro-kun, it's a good question. And the answer is simple. You will pose as Chunin hopefuls from the Sound Village. The three stared dumbfounded at their leader. You're going to have us pose as genin? Asked Tayuya in a disbelieving shriek. No one will know any better, said Orochimaru calmly. It will be a perfect opportunity to get close to your target. Just remember, though the child might not look like much, the power of the beast inside of him is vast. Do not underestimate him. Orochimaru nodded to himself. With his elites after his head, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was as good as dead. That would not only make his own task simpler, but it would also anger leader something fierce. Considering that the man just declared a full-blown war against him, Orochimaru would not hesitate to hurt his plans. Now go and prepare, he said to his underlings. I need to think. Pain watched intently as holograms of all Akatsuki members gradually appeared on the fingers of the demonic statue. Once all images had sprung into existence, he locked eyes with Itachi and Kisame and began to speak. I'm moving forward with the plan, he stated. Finally! Said Kisame enthusiastically. All this waiting and preparing was getting on my nerves. Should we go get the Kyuubi container now or what? You will get him during the Chunin exams, said Pain tonelessly. I have it on good information that they will be otherwise occupied during the event, giving you the perfect opportunity to retrieve him with minimal issues. I was under the impression that the Kyuubi must be sealed last, said Itachi with an equally apathetic tone, as if competing with Pain about which one of them cared the least about the discussion. We cannot afford to wait any longer, said Pain simply. I have concluded that it was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki that destroyed Kakuzu. We cannot afford to let him grow stronger. Who, the kid has gotten that strong? Asked Kisame with amusement in his voice. Well, so much better for me. I must admit I was worried the kid would be a joke to fight against. Pain ignored him, turning to look at two other members. Deidara, Yugo, you two will also go to Konoha during the Chunin exams. Your target is the container of the Ichibi. He has reputation for being strong, but I expect no problems on your end. Questions? Yeah, said Deidara. You sure this psycho won't flip out on me in the middle of the battle? I can blow him up if he does, yeah? Pain let the question hang in the silence for a few seconds before answering. I assure you that Yugo's unstable tendencies have been taken care of. He is dedicated to our goals as much as anyone, concluded Pain. Leader Sama has saved me from my inner demon, said Yugo reverently. I will follow his decrees to the death. Why did I have to get stuck for a fanatical maniac? Grumbled Deidara. He has no appreciation for art whatsoever. Any relevant questions? Asked Pain dangerously. No, answered Deidara quickly. We'll get the Sand Kid for you, yeah? Nothing left to be said. The images of Akatsuki members flickered out of existence, until only the image of Pain was left, staring lifelessly in the distance.